Well, and so that's the control aspect. You're saying the tuner, an established, experienced tuner, was able to get the vehicle to accelerate in a way that I'm currently unable to get it to accelerate. Mm-hmm. So that's that box. Then the other box is the data system. Well, how are you ever going to effectively race a vehicle if there are things that are happening that you don't see because your data logger can't see them? And when I say it can't see them, there are systems that are currently on the market that people will go to the grave defending that the data systems will never see some stuff that's hindering the performance of the vehicle. So you're like, well, what? It's like, what choice do I have then? It's like, well, you currently, I don't know that you really have a good choice. You know, you just get the Motec. Right. You gotta decide. You gotta choose a side. You gotta pick. You gotta do what's right. You gotta have what's right.
Welcome back to Guard Podcast. I'm your host, Noel.
Co-host Justin White.
Guys, we're out here, Florida 2K week. You know, it's been a great turnout so far. We have a very special guest. But it's been rough. If you hear a lot of noise in the background, it's raining. Just want to give a huge shout out to TBN Brakes for letting us borrow this spot to do the podcast, and Rive Sensors, Raceworks. If you need brakes for your car, check out TBN Brakes. Got one of the lightest brakes in the industry right now. Think if you can pick one up on this car, you can see him in the background. Got a very special guest here. You've seen his tech tips on YouTube. You've seen he worked on many cars, many builds, many engines, tested a bunch of parts and how they work.
Everything.
Justin's, you've seen all of his videos.
Been a stalker for many years.
Stalker. I mean, it's going to get great, guys. You know how we do it. So, yeah, let's give it up for the man, the myth, the legend. Woo!
Thanks,
Tell us a little about you, Jay, and introduce yourself.
My name is Jay Marr, and I have been heavy into cars my whole life, you know, and it's led me on quite an adventure, you know. So I started when I was young, you know. I've talked about it before. My parents had a trade business, and there were vehicles that needed to be worked on. So like, you know, you changed an oil, or there was a couple. A hydrolocked rod in a big engine once, and I got to fix that, and head gaskets on things, and just working on stuff. And then get into the first time I felt a car that I thought at the time was powerful, and then I had to have something like that. So you just get a hot rod in your life, and you just start going through the whole thing.
Right. What car was that? Did you?
It was a Mustang. It was a Fox body. And when you look back, it's really terrible because in '93, a '93 Mustang GT would only go 93 or 94 miles an hour in the quarter. But if you've only driven vehicles that probably wouldn't go 80 miles an hour in the quarter, Mustang's pretty fast. Yeah. So, and then it progressed into like, you know, I remember the first time I drove a car that went 110 in the quarter. And that felt fast. And then 130, and then 140, and then, you know, like the first time you do a wheelie at the track, like all those things, like it's just this moving target of fast.
And it never stops.
Maybe. It stops if you if you know to stop it.
Do you know to stop it?
Yeah.
You've gotten to that point?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that over 200?
No. But it's probably 6 in the quarter.
Yeah.
6 1/4 is enough for me. That's you're riding. And at that point I could start to argue that 1/8 mile is not only easier on your checkbook because you don't have that long pull in high gear. Mm-hmm. So the engine isn't subjected to as much heat. But you know, you're still going 160 something miles an hour like that. So 1/8 mile stuff, I think once you're in the 4s in the 1/8, you have a pretty fun time.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you can have a car that lives well like that.
I was going to say, it seems like in the 4s, you can keep it alive for quite a while. The mid to high 4s.
Yeah.
Start getting into the low 4s, it's kind of like...
Start
starting to get
Working on
expensive
it.
quickly.
Yeah.
Damn.
But also, it's like you don't really have a lot of decision-making time either. So you're really relying on management and things like that.
Yeah.
It's not like you're like, oh, I need to lift here. You're already there.
No, I think that drag racing, for maybe a segment of it, the car's taking you for a ride, and it's like a blast. The car's taking you for a blast.
Yep.
Because the faster the car is, the shorter the ride is, and the more intense it is. But once you make laps in a car, that you can slow the time down, and you're present through how it feels when you let go of the button, and you know, like there's guys that have made a lot of runs, right? So the guy that lets go of the button, and he's looking at the lights to see what his 60-foot time was, and it was 105 or
While
109
making the pass?
while making the pass. Like,
I've never gone that fast, so I can't even relate to that.
right, but imagine if there was an opportunity to spend 10 seconds in the mind of a fighter pilot as he flew the plane.
Right.
Like, the mind is capable of processing probably a lot more than we use it for. But you need to be familiarized with the madness for it not to be madness anymore. So part of the attraction with cars is like the first time you let go of the clutch and it goes, or the first time you let go of the button and it goes, the madness, the thrill of the madness. It's like when you found a big hill on your bicycle as a kid and you're going to barrel down it or
When you
drop
built
it
the
on
ramp,
a,
and
build
then
the
that ramp starts getting more,
Yeah.
and more, and then you
Yeah.
break a leg,
Yes.
and you're like,
Yes.
yeah, we go down an inch.
Yeah. But as adults, it's like it's mostly finances, you know, will help really dictate how fast you go and the people you're around. You know,
Yeah.
so you may top out, you know, but I think it's different nowadays because in the old days you had you could have a 10-second car and everybody had 10-second cars, so it was okay. But things have progressed.
And then they do drive these things on the street. So
The other day I met a young man. He's younger than 25, and he has an Audi RS3 that goes like 170 in the quarter. And you're just thinking like, this kid's ruined. Like,
Yeah.
where do you go from there? I went to Bonneville a few weeks ago, and we put a 15-year-old kid in this little Datsun Z that has a 2JZ.
The red one?
Yeah.
yeah,
And
doesn't that car do like 250?
it's been 250 something. Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah,
And
it's short wheelbase.
oh yeah, but it's got a big wing.
but it's short wheelbase.
I know, but it's got a big wing. But
Damn.
we showed up, and it's a dear friend of mine's grandson, and I already said like, this is a bad idea. Can we wait a year or two? And like, this is it. Let's do it now. So it's drive-by-wire. So I cut the throttle out of it, and I can't make the turbo make any less really. And the father sheet metal riveted a plate to keep it out of 5th and 6th gear, and it'll go like 220 at like 8,500.
But wouldn't he did that like for the throttle or something? No,
for
because you cut the
'cause
throttle.
He could mechanically put it in gear,
Oh, so you limited the gear.
limited the gear. So I
Okay.
limited the throttle and limited the gear, and it still went like 217 or something. And I'm thinking like, this kid, you know, he's driving this car.
He's ruined for life because he's already done 217 at 15 years old.
But he didn't get the intimacy of the direct experience because the engine was neutered. If I would have left the throttle open and turned the traction control off, he would have had an honest experience and know to be afraid. So yeah, in his mind, the kid was like, I'm getting it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you look at the log and you're like,
That
computer's
was-
helping out.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, that's fast. I mean, 15-year-old kid.
Yeah.
It was pretty cool.
Well, that's something I feel like with the newer cars. I know you don't do Corvettes, right? But if you take a C7, like what I was telling you, my car run, right? It's a pretty manageable thing. But you don't, yeah, it's violent, right? But it's not crazy violent. You make the same power in like a C5 and you feel the road and you feel everything and you know, kind of like, have you ever driven like a Gen 1, Gen 2 Viper?
Yeah.
It's a bathtub on wheels.
Yeah.
You feel everything. You felt that pebble you hit at 180, right? But you don't feel that in the newer cars.
Yeah.
And I think it's causing people to have a false sense of confidence that they.
Yeah. A lot of new cars are really safe to crash.
Yeah.
Even at excessive speed. So, like, when you go back into the early American automobile, it didn't take much to get killed. The steering column,
Right, because there's no
the
crumple
steering wheel
zones,
would fold
nothing.
over. The column punctures you, you're dead. The A pillars had no strength. Those big, gorgeous windshields, they're terrible to crash in, right? But the cars have gotten so safe, especially post airbag era, and people aren't afraid in a vehicle. And then the cars have gotten really fast. So if you take a young person and you put him in a car that does 150, 160 in the quarter, and he gets away with it a couple times, speed isn't that scary. And he thinks he's got it under control until something goes wrong.
Until he doesn't.
Until he doesn't.
People don't know how to react to that.
Well, some things you can't react to. And, you know, that could go into track versus street. At least on the track, you are in a position that, aside from the other driver and all of the there's a lot of knowns on the racetrack. And on the street, there's a lot of unknowns.
That's true.
And that's when you are on the street with a lot of speed, things happen pretty fast. You know, so, you know, your customer base, that 40-something% of sub 25-year-old men with cars like that, like, you have to, even though they're not going to listen, you say, hey, like, the risks are higher than zero. Like, your chances of getting hurt, higher than zero. Spinal injuries, stuff like that at a young age, like, you don't want to deal with those problems. Like, try to be relatively safe with the dumb stuff you're doing.
Right.
You know? Yeah.
Yeah, I try to implement things, boost by gear, things like that. And they're like, oh, well, I want to turn it off. I'm like, you're just going to spin. You're not going to go any faster.
Yeah.
And that usually helps.
Yeah.
But I still have them. They'll turn it off.
Oh, I remember I bought a Mark 5 Supra when they came out, and I turned the TC off because I wanted to see what it felt like when it got up on the tires. I'm like, these are going to be really easy to crash. And like shortly thereafter, because it'll just keep stacking gears in and stacking wheel speed on, and then you've got little influence on which direction that thing's going, and they crash.
Yeah, I'm really surprised that it doesn't bias front versus rear factory. Like
Bias what?
The shift scheduling will run off of the back.
Oh yeah, they need a maximum gear.
If it could see the front and maybe do a bias,
but it sees it. The programmers said we're going to give them a button that they have to push, and that makes it a little bit more dangerous. You can spin the tires and stuff like that, and then we're going to have a button that is you're on your own. And like if you got into like some of that Mercedes stuff, there was dyno mode, where I no longer care about vehicle speed. The back tires can go as fast as they want. What you're talking about, yeah, they should be maximum gear versus.
That's what I mean. I just mean
speed.
shift schedule in general.
Yeah, yeah.
Because once it starts shifting, you're exponentially more dangerous.
Yeah.
You're not going to recover that.
No.
So.
No.
Yeah, my brother has one of those. Yeah.
They're dicey.
As soon
little
as it
cars.
starts spinning and it's so short, as soon as it starts spinning, it's. I'm like, oh, I don't know if I like that.
No, it's they're powerful.
My first track vehicle was Gen 2 RX-7, short wheelbase, LS motor, with Powerglide, but it was a stick shift car first.
What?
Powerglide. It was a stick shift car first.
You say Powerglide without enough shame. You got to hold your head down a little bit when you say Powerglide.
You don't like Powerglide?
Oh, the other day a young man called me and he wants some help with this thing that he's doing, and he must have listened to me talk about it before because he was very spirited in the whole thing. You know, big block Chevy, light vehicle, 4-link, Powerglide.
I'm not gonna lie, you're kind of getting me here.
I'm like, sorry, can you back up? You said something, but the maybe you're going through a tunnel. What transmission is it? He's like, Powerglide, and I'm like, oh, a Powerglide. Okay, the one with the 2 forward gears only.
So keep in mind that my mainstay is overdrive transmissions, 6, 8, 10 speed. That's my thing.
Yep.
I build them, I tune them, I love them. I do have a 400 car.
Okay.
But back when I was 21, 22, some old redneck showed me a Powerglide, and to me, that was a manual car, right? And I liked the manual, but the car was getting fast. It made like 700-800, which again, that was fast.
That was fast.
And he showed me a Powerglide, and I'm like, what is this madness, right? One and done. So I've never messed with one since then, but to me, I thought that was a good thing, and now I'm learning that I'm wrong.
Well, it's
so I'd love to know why I'm wrong, because
oh well, let's look at the upside first. You have a car that's pretty powerful, and you need a budget way to connect the engine to the drive shaft that will manage power that almost anyone can fix. You could even fix it yourself.
the 100% of the reasons we did
it's
it.
affordable, and the reason why it's had such a long run is all those reasons. And then you say, well, what are the downsides? And the downside is having the engine in a window that the engine is efficient and can survive.
Okay, I know where you're going with this.
And when you take a hard-working engine and you let go of the button, and the converter allows the vehicle to essentially accelerate away from the mechanical gearing, and then the converter starts to couple and accelerates the vehicle up to the vehicle speed, and everything's going good. And then you go into high gear, and the split is big. And the converter either has to slip through that at a single speed, right? Then you're in the stall of the converter, and the engine is not accelerating. The engine is parked at a speed with all the boost and all the load and all the pressure
where torque is,
and it can't move. And that's no different than when you ask someone to take the 55-pound dumbbell and move it right here and hang out. And you could have a turbo 400, and then you got a gear split. Or you can have a 4-speed or a 5-speed, a 5-speed preferably, and then you're doing it. You know? Like, look at, in the transmission conversation alone, when you look at drag racing, a lot of guys get away from stock stuff, get away from the modern stuff. It's 2 speeds and 3 speeds, right? Where did we go wrong that we didn't fall in love with converter drives and Linkos or converter drives and B&Js, where you could have a 5-speed?
Gonna tell you where.
Please.
Because I didn't know that shit existed.
Correct. So it's education.
I was at Titan, and I see this box with all these airlines going to it, and I'm like, "The hell's going on here?" Right? And it was a Liberty.
Yeah.
Never seen that. You mean you can change your gear ratios on the fly?
Yeah.
Why do we not do that? I don't know why we don't do that, but I think it's because our generation, we don't know what the hell that is.
Well,
we don't see it.
The Liberty.
I'd be lying if I didn't say I've been wanting to do one.
I remember the first time I took my wife to World Cup years ago, and there was these dudes up from Puerto Rico, and there it is. There's a Liberty shifter in the car, and just the look of the shifter alone, she was like, "What is that?" And I'm like, "That's a Liberty." And she says, "How does it work?" And I say, well, you see the ring? You pull up on the ring and you put it forward. And when it's time to go, you let go of the clutch. And all you do is row that thing straight back and forth 5 times. And she's like, I want that. And then we walked over to my buddy's car, Carrie Bales. And at the time he had a air shifted Liberty. And
that's what I was looking at, right?
And I used to break his balls about it. And I said, see that button on the steering wheel? That's how Carrie shifts. And she was like, oh, but
right.
And Carrie's not wrong in doing it because the next step after that is automated. Like I just ran a car at Bonneville last weekend, and I automated the shifting because I want the torque reduction on the gear change, and
so they would line up, right?
No, so I can take power away on the gear change.
Right, but that you did it automated so you could have the computer know when to cut, or just so you didn't hit it.
Oh, Liberty
did it have no indication?
Liberty doesn't need a cut. Liberty, you just go to the next gear.
Right, that's why I was confused.
You don't have
on
a
the
strain
gear.
gauge on a Liberty. You just row.
I was just confused why you would have the cut on it.
Because I need the power reduction. I had to tell the ECU to shift it so I can tell the ECU to suck timing out of it and put timing back in, because on the gear change it starts to stack wheel speed.
Okay.
And there's not a lot of traction there, and also torque reduction to keep we broke the vehicle has a quick change. Have you
The
seen
rear
one of
diff?
those?
The
Yeah.
rear diff? Yeah. Another thing that we don't know about.
Well, the
Coolest thing I've seen.
Yeah, the quick change has a drive shaft, like a regular rear end,
Hmm.
and that hooks to a shaft that goes back to a gear, another gear, and then that's the pinion, and then there's the ring gear. So you change the back 2 gears, and you can have all the ratios.
Yeah, that's
you
what I
want.
saw. And
Yeah.
I saw it in a race in a Mustang, a Fox body. That
quick
he was
change in a
he
Fox
was doing.
body?
Yeah, I forget his name. He was at a streetcar takeover.
Yeah?
So he would do his 8th mile, and then he would do the roll race. He'd go back and he'd swap his gears,
Yeah.
and he'd do the roll race,
Well,
and he'd
that-
win both.
That shaft that connects the drive
crazy.
shaft to the gear, it's only like an inch, and we broke it.
Oh,
So I
man.
woke up that morning and I thought, like, I should let the Motec shift the trans, even though it's like demasculating. I should just accept it, and I didn't, and I got the car moving, and it was slipping the tires the perfect amount through first, and I pushed the button and it broke, and I was like, So I had to like try to find someone that had the shaft, and there was one in Fresno, and a buddy of mine was coming from Fresno, and he could go get the rear end, take the shaft out, and fly it to me the next morning. So it was really cool, but like I need the automation for the torque reduction.
Yeah.
The torque reduction is your friend. There's a lot of drive lines that would live. If you take like an 8 HP and strip away the torque reduction, it's easy to break stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So when you look at racing trans, even something that's purpose built, like all those sport front wheel drive cars, anything with a strain gauge, anything you can really with authority smash it into the next gear, like those guys that are shifting those stick shift cars off the high chip.
Yeah.
It goes from, depending on the control range on the limiter, a lot of cut to no cut. So the shock, well, like if you were doing it pretty right, you would go to enough cut to make the gear change, and then from that number, say it's 80% cut back to 0% cut over a couple hundred milliseconds, and the drive line, it's like, thanks. Depending on how much wheel slip on a gear change is optimal.
Like spinning on the shift.
Yeah, you may go faster when you manage the tire slip on a gear change.
Because it would keep the momentum going without bogging.
Well, because you don't get into too much wheel spin and keep the momentum. Yeah, you need, some cars need the momentum,
Yeah.
but no car needs excessive wheel speed.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I noticed that a stock Mustang, took it to the track on the stock tires, put it on drag radial dead hooked, car will go slower.
Yeah.
That little bit of wheel slip made a big difference.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But you don't see a lot of drag cars with Lenkos and Liberties. The Lenko was, I think, one of the coolest. Is that essentially the same thing?
No, the
The
Liberty
multi handles.
No, yeah, the Lenko is a bunch of automatic planetaries in line, and the ratios multiply as they go.
Oh, because you stack them, right?
You stack them.
Okay.
The Liberty is a manual trans has a main shaft and a counter shaft. And generally, the center line between the main shaft and the counter shaft is the strength of the transmission. So the Craig Liberty designed this transmission that instead of it being vertical, where it's main shaft, counter shaft, it's a lay down.
Right.
And it's a main shaft and counter shafts on each side. So now as the torque is processed through the transmission, the main shaft can't deflect away from the gear and
Makes
brake.
it so it can't pull out the teeth.
Correct. So it's an incredibly strong design.
And it sounds so cool rolling the gears.
Oh man, the Liberty stuff is like.
I think that's something. Like I said, I think that's part of it. I think people haven't heard that. They don't. I know.
Well, you don't know what you're missing. So you get into a hobby, and in order to stay in the hobby, you make an agreement with yourself that you're doing it pretty good. And that kind of starts to box you in. Your budget and what you're surrounded by starts to box you in. bunch of Chevy guys over there, a bunch of Ford guys over there, a bunch of Honda guys over there. They all get in this little box, and then they're not thinking about innovation. It's what was so beautiful about the 60s is the parts were so horrible that you had to have innovation. The fuel was so bad that you had to have innovation or the cars weren't fast.
Do you think that the access to information nowadays is killing the innovation? Because
maybe. It's
what
slippery.
I see is like, so for whatever reason, I'm a natural skeptic. You can show me it works and I'll accept what you say, but I'm going to go test it.
Yeah.
And that's just how I've always been. But I've noticed a lot of people aren't like that. They'll just be like, well, I read this guy, and this guy does this, and that's what I'm going to do. And then none of them think outside, oh, let's try something different. They just don't have that anymore because the information's so readily available. You can Google it.
Okay. So you're told to do this, and that for an outcome.
Mm-hmm.
And that becomes your reality. Well, the man that told you that, you probably asked him how to get from here to there. He gave you the path he knew and how to stay out of big trouble. And that became your norm.
But with it being that easy, do you think it's killing the innovation of people, like to want to try something different? Because
not everybody,
so easy.
not everybody gets to win. So I think that if anything is, if there's something that's hurting innovation, it would be how easy it is to build something fast without having to know a lot. That would kill innovation more so than the other constraints.
Yeah.
Because then you have your box, whoever the crowd you get involved with, if you're a Coyote guy or you're this or you're that. I mean, look at the emergence of different things. So if one of you could tell me what year an F-150 was available with a Coyote and four-wheel drive later,
2011, something like that. Yeah.
we're a decade later, and there are some deadly fast Coyote turbo pickup trucks. Why did it take us 10 years?
Yeah.
The S2000 is a phenomenal platform for turbocharging. If you want to have a car that's a blast, like the guy that I mentioned earlier, Kerry Bills, he had an S2000 that was turbocharged, and there were smart men around the car, and it was fast, and it was fun, and it was before like anybody was doing it.
Was the stock motor or like?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, it's great. I mean, I made like 700 horsepower or something stupid with a stock 4-cylinder engine, and it was hard to break. I don't remember how I broke it. I think what happened was...
Is that the S2K?
Yeah, that's 2K.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, the engine, they didn't let they took it to the track. They didn't let the engine normalize temperature because that's important.
Mm-hmm.
And
Something that's also not done today.
yeah, I think they they were knocking core plugs in the head, and they knocked one of those out. Either water pressure or boost pressure, because the thing hadn't normalized.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That was the first engine to make, 100 horsepower per
Probably the first thing that wasn't Italian.
liter. 100 horsepower per liter or something.
There was like 195 horsepower GS. The Honda guys are going to hang me on this, but like there was a powerful GSR engine.
Mm.
Not that there was two different flavors of the
Black and red or something. Black and red valve cover.
B18 or something like
B18
that.
C1 and B18 C5, I believe.
Yeah.
I had one. I should know this.
Those were I have one. I should know this. Those were pretty old engines now, and they were real powerful. But yeah, the S2000 engine was really cool. It had a small chain that drove a gear that drove the cams. It had VTEC. It had lovely, like if you're a geek about engine math, like RPM concerns and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
If you're a rod stroke ratio guy, and you take that engine apart, like that engine had a lot of really neat things in it for a production vehicle. But it took a long time for us to catch on. So like we're slow to change.
Same thing with some of the LS stuff too, though. That came out of 98, and I mean we were happy with 400 horsepower for
Right.
at least 10 years.
Right.
Because I mean, as I was coming up with cars, 500 was like you were doing some shit.
Yeah.
At 500, and that was all the way through, man, at least 2011, 2012 before we really started seeing more than that.
And I think that was a lot of my attraction to the Toyota Supra because I worked on Mustangs, and if you had a Mustang with a stock block and it made around 500, the block
Correct.
could break. And you'd have guys that go to the track winter time, and they'd run their best runs, and on the way home they'd lose oil pressure, and the block was broken. And then Nero at Titan, he would come rent the place I was working at. We had a dyno jet, and the things that they would do to the engine, they were kids too. I mean, we're just kids. I'm not.
Right.
This thing would miss and shake and spit and piss and moan, but it wouldn't break. And I would be wrenching on cars, and while they were using the dyno, and I would be like, Mustang won't live through that. No way. So then when I got one of those cars, I started tinkering with it, and then I had a local customer that he could successfully go out on a Saturday night and beat a Hayabusa in his Supra. And
What year was this?
this is around 05, 06.
Damn. That's it.
Yeah.
I mean, those bikes are.
I know.
Not today, but
Well, it's
in
140
0506, that's
plus mile an
insane.
hour.
yeah.
144. A good rider on a Busa will go 144 on a stock Busa as long as he's not real heavy. And the Supra could beat it. And I remember the first time that car was tuned by this old school dude named Justin Ninny that I think is still in the game. And it just had a toggle switch, low boost, high boost. So you put race gas in it, you're on that switch, pump gas, you're on that switch. And I remember the first time I floored that thing and felt it stick an 18-inch drag radial in third and accelerate. And like, even though those cars are old and a lot of people think they're played out, they're still an incredibly impressive vehicle. And that was about all it took for me to say, like, I want one of those.
Is it the engine that was so impressive? Something I'd never thought about because I was always like, man, why is the straight six such a great thing, right? And I was told it's like, how many main caps does a LS have? And I was like, I've never thought about that. That's why that crank is so
it gets
strong.
way worse than that.
Okay.
Because the inline engine, the crankshaft is often slightly offset in the block.
Is it?
Often.
Okay.
And that helps the angles at the inside of the engine are seen. So if you got like an engine, like a LS7, a poor rod stroke ratio engine, the rod's laid way over, coming out of bottom dead center, pushing on that cylinder wall, coming back up. Well, as it's pushing on that, the other one's pushing on that. It's like
So it's stressing
it's
the
like
block.
an argument inside the engine.
Mm-hmm.
And the inline engine just doesn't have that problem. And you have 7 main caps. You have a fairly strong engine block. It came
There's
with
iron, right?
Yeah, cast iron block, multi-layer steel head gasket from the factory, good fasteners, long rod bolts, nice head bolts, a turbocharger that isn't inducing harmonics into the engine like a supercharger does. A cooling system that had this big, sweet duct that brings air across the radiator, a boot in front of the intercooler helping it get air, one of the best manual trans that was ever made, a big differential that didn't really
For strength
break.
or gearing?
Yes.
Or both?
Yes.
Okay.
5th gear 1-to-1.
Yeah.
So go back to your Powerglide fantasy. You've got a transmission.
I didn't know better.
I know. It's okay. You got a transmission that has a call first. It knocks the vehicle in motion to keep the clutch from getting destroyed right away. So you knock it in motion with in first gear, you get it in second, and now you're on your way. It's like 387, 236. And 4th gear is 131. And then you stick it in 5th and you're 1-to-1. So you have
You got a
pretty
good bit of
favorable
range.
gearing for a vehicle to accelerate. And I still have one because I have 2 of them. And the one of them is just like a good road car, a Porsche GT3 for a little bit. I sold my house that I had I've been like trading. I'm on my third house now, but first one was at 20 years old. So I had some equity. So I'm like, I'm gonna buy a Porsche before I can't get in and out of one. So I buy this GT3, and it's good. And my wife's like, well, we're gonna need the money to build the house. What are you gonna do? I'm like, maybe I'll sell the Supra, or maybe I'll sell the Porsche. And then when the time came, I'm like, I'm gonna sell the Porsche because I'm not gonna build another Supra. Like this,
Right.
the Supra I have, it's pretty awesome. It's got a Motec box on it, and it's got good traction control, and it makes good power, and it's what that car is. Like it's a Supra. They're good cars in that regard.
What about like the whole traction issue? Is that just people talking?
When?
Well, everybody's like, difference between a 500 horsepower Supra and an 800 horsepower Supra in the quarter.
Okay, so if you take the amount of ignorance that we practice to make our what we believe in, to comfort ourselves, it's a pretty long list. It's like a Supra, drag racing a Supra, going back to the trans gearing, it's not the best because first gear is so deep. Kind of like you watch a GTR leave the starting line out, it's just dead upset. Mm-hmm. Well, the gearing is real tall because the clutch can't slip. So that's a wet clutch in that car. The clutch comes in, the gearing is super deep. All its job is to knock all that weight in motion and get it in second and start to accelerate the vehicle. So kind of the same thing with the Supra. Like, they're not geared well for drag racing. Like, I took my car to the track a couple times years ago, and it went like 10.5 at 155 or something.
Jesus.
And it was like, 30 pounds of boost. The engine will live like forever like that. It just doesn't care. And it goes 155.
But it's something that I guess I'm piecing together here. I wonder if that's why some of these modern engines can take what we're throwing at them. Because, it's not abnormal on like an LT4. It's not abnormal to make 12 to 1,400 horsepower in stock motor. But I wonder if some of that's due to the gearing being so efficient, having 8 and 10 speeds.
Okay, now we're talking. The power. If you put a Powerglide in your car,
I'm never doing that again, by the way. I want to look at one now.
It will throw the rods out of it. I bet it throws the rods out of it.
But that's what I was saying. My RX-7, I've lost the motor twice, and we couldn't figure out why. But I wonder if...
Well, in a perfect world, the engine would go to a high cycle speed because then then the time under stress shortens. When you have stress over a long period of time, the components have to be very strong. Think about like a diesel engine, big components, low RPM, lots of load, lots of torque. 03 Cobra, we're going to put a blower on a mod Ford. What do we need? We need some H-beam rods because the stock rods are going to come out of it because it'll make boost at 2,000 RPM. Mm-hmm. So the gearing does matter. Getting the engine in a space like with Brett LaSalle's Mustang, the stuff that Job does with the trans, yeah, that helps the engine live.
Well, that was something I had seen. He had said at one point was, he's like, it doesn't really matter 9, 10,000, whatever RPM. He said it's that, not dead quote, but basically if it short shifts, it's done. But he's like, I could run it all day up here.
Yeah.
But as soon as it comes down here, he's like, you just wrap it up, it's done.
It's the cycle time. And, I think the easiest analogy to use is the weightlifting thing. And that's like my go-to analogy because I could give you some dumbbells, and if you're swinging them, you're fine. But the minute I tell you to slow down, 10 seconds up, 10 seconds down, you're wrecked so fast.
It makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And honestly, you need to get back on YouTube with these videos because this is not really common knowledge anymore.
Well, this is going to be on YouTube.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, but
Yeah. So my my new company,
we're only prying out what we can here, but I know there's so much in there.
Yeah. I'll be back doing that stuff. I took advantage of the opportunity to catch my breath.
Which sometimes makes a
like
whole new person.
Think about all of us men that if you didn't want to be a loser, you had to go work hard. If you're lucky, you found a good woman. If you were lucky, you had children. If, and then, man, you're in your 40s and you're like, uh-oh, getting old. And you have to just keep riding the course because you can't afford to change course. Well, get to change course. It's pretty cool. But I wanted to take some time away from a lot of the what I had been doing to make sure that I don't change to the wrong course. Because if you change direction and you eat 2 years going in the wrong direction, well, now you're 48. Uh-oh. You know,
Right.
so like I was just trying to change course at a rate that I could at least watch the landscape and make sure I wasn't getting myself in trouble. Mm-hmm. But yeah, now it's like, you know, I have the dude that I work with for YouTube stuff, his name is Luis, and he is a badass dude. I mean, him and I have a good time. We go out to El Mirage and we bang around in LA and we do the Bonneville stuff and he's great at his work. And I've been working with him for like, you know, when he was with me at Real Street, it was like 3 years. And just even working with him is fun. It makes me want to do more filming stuff. And we've been doing that. We've got stuff in motion now.
Nice.
And you know, I'm like building some engines to make a little bit of money just so my household isn't going backwards financially. And then doing some YouTube stuff. And the next tier of it is to add some hands because I've got this cache of really cool cars, in my opinion. And I want to start playing with those cars again. And I can do that on YouTube. And then just, you know, hire some guys to sell parts. And I got the guys. And then I'll just be back at it, you know. But a lot of change in a short period of time. Mm-hmm. So I didn't want to, if I would have said, okay, that business and me are no longer together, I'm just going to make a living on YouTube, I could get myself in some trouble. Because what if it doesn't just start making money? Garrett's career, it's incredible. But there's one Garrett.
Yep.
Right.
You know? And it doesn't mean that everybody gets to be him. Only he gets to be him. And I had to be careful to not like get heavy into YouTube and then not be making any money.
Right.
And I can't get heavy into building engines because I don't have the hands left to do it for 15
Right.
or 20 more years.
Right.
So I'm just like checking it out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So before Real Street, you know, what were you doing before Real Street?
I was working on Mustangs.
Yeah.
Yeah. So my parents had a business. It was a tree business, and it's a hard business to be in. It's a lot of hard work.
Like arborist tree.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah. Like
Yeah.
I can run chainsaws and front end loaders and grinders and
Stump grinders.
like get the branch near the chipper and throw it in, but don't let it get you. Like back then, they didn't have auto feed chippers. You throw it and it rips the branch through, and you're a kid and you're like, Dad's like, if it gets you, try to hit the lever on the way in. You're like, oh my God, you know? You know? So cars were way more attractive to me.
Safe.
Yeah, so I had a Mustang, and I met this dude. His name is Jake LaMotta. He's a Mustang guy. And I was working with him at night, and I was probably... I was 18 because I waited till I graduated high school to move out of the house, and I was sharing an apartment with these chicks. I was like sleeping on their floor or something, and I was making like $700 or $1,000 a week in cash working on cars, and I would work from like 7 p.m. to 1 a.m. So I still had my days, and I was
To
making
spend all the cash.
no, no, because I wanted to buy a house. Because the next thing you're supposed to do when you're young
Smart.
is buy a house. So I needed like 10 grand, and then I could buy a house. So I was working for my parents, and then I was working for Jake, and I was making pretty good money, and I was hoarding cash. I needed to buy the house. So that was like 18 to 20 maybe. And I was screwing off. I mean, I had hot rods and I was messing with nitrous and
What brand?
what do you mean?
What brand nitrous?
Oh, I don't think there was a lot of brands back then. I think it was just
Whatever bottle you found.
well, I think
Nitrous Express?
it's before them. I think it was just
Cold Fusion.
Cold. Oh my god.
No, what is the brand? The
NOS?
old NOS. It was just
Yeah.
NOS.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The blue bottle.
Yeah, the blue bottle. Yeah.
I have one just because I like that it's a blue bottle and it looks cool.
It's a cool looking bottle.
Yeah.
No, the majority of nitrous stuff that I used as an adult was Nitrous Express. And it's just the brand that,
Nice.
you know, whenever the guys at Real Street that would pick out whatever our manufacturers and accounts had the right margins to push, it was Nitrous Express. So that was the majority of that stuff. But I think there's a lot of good brands in that space, you know. Well, again, I think that when I was messing with nitrous, you're talking about 98, and I didn't know what I was doing.
Were you tuning for it or just spraying it?
We
You can be honest. Were you spraying the mass air? Is that how this is working?
No,
Did
it's
they
a-
even have that?
Yeah, I had I think the second place I lived was with this guy Tom that had a couple of Mustang Salines, and one of them had had been converted to carburetor, and it had an engine that I think would go in 11 on the engine, which is a pretty good engine back then, and we had a 225 plate and a C4 with a trans brake. And I went down to Moroso and I let go of the button and did a wheelie, and I thought I saw God. I mean, the first time you feel like the struts lock out and that's not enough and it brings the nose up off the ground, you're like,
Oh my
this
God.
is cool.
It's that hard pop when it comes up.
Oh,
that
man.
boom, and you're like, oh, I know I'm high.
Yeah.
And then you're like, do I let go? Do I not? Do I let go? Do I not?
Yeah. I
You
was
didn't let
told
go?
that if the nose came off the ground and you got uncomfortable, you put it in second.
I let go.
Yeah.
My first time. I heard that pop and I was like, what was that? And naturally I'm like, oh my God. Boom. Pan in the,
Yeah.
It was an accident. I was young. I didn't know.
Nah, it happens. I had 2 ugly wheelies in my life that I hurt the car coming down. But it wasn't then because it had a C4, so you just put it in second and it would just do its thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, but no, we weren't tuning. We were we didn't have a wideband. We didn't have a fuel pressure gauge. We didn't have enough fuel
You
pump.
sprayed it until it felt like that was all it was going to take?
No, we sprayed it until probably 900 feet when the ground straps were in the mufflers. I mean, we probably had the heaviest set of Flowmaster mufflers or whatever they were.
What's that jingle?
No, they were just they when they leave the engine, they're molten little balls, and they probably just fuse right to the wall of the muffler, and that's it. They're just in there.
That's the first time I've heard somebody say that.
Oh, it was fun. We didn't know what we were doing, but we were having fun.
When I
don't know
started
how
messing with nitrous, it was like, man, if you spray it through the mass air, you just spray it until it stops taking. And I'm like, what does that mean? And they're like, you'll know. I'm like, oh, okay.
Did you find out what that meant?
Yeah, on a V6.
Oh
What
my
happens
God.
when you know?
It was, it just noses down and it pops. Doesn't blow the intake for some reason.
Yeah.
But it's like, ugh, like when you get too much.
When you were learning about this stuff and you felt an engine nose because it wanted to die, did it take you a few nose sessions before you realized something ain't right?
2 engines before I realized what was going on.
Yeah.
I learned what doesn't take means.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's cool that someone says doesn't take it. Because, like,
It was like something. It was an old grudge racer told me. He's like, yeah, you'll know when it doesn't take. And I'm like, I don't know what
do you
you're
know who
saying.
Pete Harrell is?
No, I don't think so.
You got to get Pete Harrell on your deal. Pete Harrell's a dude from North Carolina that's pretty good at doing stuff.
Did he have a bucket of pistons? Scott Clark's one of those guys. He's he's very controversial, but he's a knowledgeable guy.
Yeah. Was Scott Clark what computer did he like?
Don't you do Bonneville? He's always out there.
What was his computer of choice?
It was the Microsquirt, Megasquirt.
Oh, the Mega Squirt.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember. I think I saw him on the internet whenever forums were a thing. It kind of blows my mind as there's some old guys at Bonneville where the way they talk about nitromethane and how the engine won't rev up because there's so much fuel in the port, the engine gets air choked. Like,
Doesn't it bring its own air? I know I'm missing
it's
something
in
here.
this, like the intake port volume, because like there's efficiency. Like the reason why the high horsepower NA guys use gas is because there's less fuel in the port. There's more air. And methanol does what it does, so you have less air available to the cylinder because there's more fuel taking up the space. Well, the nitromethane engines don't rev up because there's like just so much fuel entering the engine that there's not enough air, and they like air choke at 6,000. Like if you can get your there's some guys out there that had a half a Hemi. It's like 180 cubic inch Hemi, and it turns like 6,000 RPM, and it can't rev up because it can't get air in it. That's something that lately I've been like pondering, like kind of weird.
So we've stepped into that a little bit. The DI first PI. So doing some testing with an NA car, we'd run. I don't remember the exact percentage, but basically let's just say 60-40, right? 60% DI, 40% PI. It was different, but work with me. That car would run about an 860. If I swapped that and I ran more port, that car would run 880.
Yeah, there it is.
And Brian was like, yeah, but he's like, if you think about it, any fuel you run through the runner displaces air.
Yeah.
And he tested it on his engine dyno, and I think it was like 17% of fuel he put through the port, and 17% of power was gone.
Yeah.
And
it's just a pump, right?
Right, but like nobody thinks of that. And these guys have obviously figured this out a long time ago.
Yeah.
But that's where I'm saying this lack of information is people are like, oh, well, you can do this, this, and this, and just flood it with the port, and it's fine. But you can't. Because if I dial this car in to where that direct is on the money and then fill in with port what I need versus the guy that just puts whatever direct 3 millisecond, whatever, and then flood it with port, I'm gapping the shit out of that car.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And I think the only thing that maybe, and maybe I stand to learn something about it, is what is your air charge temp? Because if the fuel, especially when you get into alcohol-based fuels, it's coolant in the cylinder. So
this was based on E85, so just...
Yeah. In naturally aspirated engines, I think that obviously the DI has a pretty significant advantage. But when you're dealing with charge temps post-compressor, the fuel can be your friend.
Similar situation on a boosted car, PD blower car, same thing.
Yeah.
So I tested on my personal car, and I would move more PI,
It's
and
still
I'd
air
watch the
limited,
power
though.
come down. Because of the blower?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like a turbocharger that you just have it go for a manifold pressure
So it probably wouldn't matter. It wouldn't matter as much.
shouldn't matter as much. Yeah. Unless your air charge temps are hot and you're using the fuel as
To cool
coolant.
it with methanol or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's funny to think about the nitro thing. It makes sense. I
Yeah.
mean, essentially, at some point, you're hydrolocking it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's like E85. I get a lot of these guys. They'll run a bunch of E85, right? And they'll pull the timing down. And they're like, man, this thing's like knocking. I'm like, because you're not burning the fuel.
Yeah.
They're like 10.8, 10.9 air fuel for some reason. And then they like knock the timing in the dirt and then crank the boost up. And I'm like, dude, it's got to burn. If it doesn't burn, it doesn't compress either.
Well, but that's air temp. You can't really have that conversation without talking about air temp, because the if you look at how OEM turbocharged cars were tuned through like the 90s and the 2000s, they have really rich mixtures. So when you take your Subaru or your Evo to the dyno guy, all he really does is he's going to lean it out. It's going to pick up a lot of power up top. Well, that fuel was the fuel that was going to keep it from blowing up.
Mm-hmm.
Because the you probably don't have in an OEM computer, and I don't know, but like in the Motec, there's like a engine load average and some time constants, and you could say like the longer it's floored, change the mixture. The longer it's floored, change the timing.
Yeah, we don't have that.
So if you had a guy that wants 900 horsepower, and he's going to make some third gear rips, and that's what he does. Takes his car out, makes some rips on a Saturday morning, takes it back home. The tune-up really doesn't have to change much because nothing ever gets hot. But when you have a car like at Bonneville where the car's wide open for 40, 50, 60 seconds, you know, like we just did this. We ran this little car. It's on our channel. It's a Volkswagen Caddy, 1.5 liter turbo, and it doesn't really have the right gearing. So we said, well, put it in fifth. If it doesn't accelerate the vehicle, push the clutch in and abort the run. Dude puts it in fifth and holds it there for a mile. Picks up 300 RPM in a mile.
Oh, God.
And I'm like, tune-up's too soft. It should have blown up. Like right there, I know my tune-up is too soft because it should have blown up. Because if I can have it live through that, it could be way hotter in fourth, you know? So like, well, you learned something, you know? But the load, the time under load is real.
Which makes sense with the gearing thing and all of that.
Yeah. Yeah. That's like the car. If you look at, it would be a fun test if you took a engine like a JZ and you put a Powerglide behind it and then you put a 5-speed behind it. The car would be faster and live longer. For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. If you have an engine that pulls down too much on a gear change, you could have deformation on a connecting rod or head gasket issues that would just go away if you just change the gearing.
Yeah.
You know, it's like those B58s, people get all jazzed up about it. It's like, well, look at the gearing. It's not that it's
an 8-speed.
Yeah.
It's got a converter.
It's always in a good spot.
Yeah.
You know, that thing is like, if the stress is Mike Tyson trying to punch you in the face, that thing's bobbing and weaving because it's just always on the move.
That's like the people are always, you know, they're like, man, I don't understand why my LT with a 10-speed doesn't compete with the Coyote with a 10-speed turbo for turbo, right? NA for NA, GM's got it, right? Because it's cubic inch and they make that power, they make that grunt. But when you turbo them, it's a whole different game. But what do we rev? 7,200 maybe?
Yeah.
What's that Coyote going to?
Well,
9?
that's
I mean, that's perfection of gearing.
Sure, that's the next. The next thing is how many times can you turn the crankshaft? Right.
Right.
So
I think that's a factor that a lot of people aren't realizing either.
Right. The Powerglide car, if you can get it to live through it, it's still turning the crankshaft less turns than the 5-speed car.
Yeah.
And it's just turn the crankshaft more turns from here to there, go faster.
It's such a simple concept, but it's lost on so many people. I never thought about that, but I've only had one Powerglide car.
Yeah.
You know, but I've always seen like the Powerglide versus Turbo 400.
You got out easy because you could have ended up with a Powerglide tattoo.
Damn, I wasn't that dedicated.
Could have been. Somebody has a Powerglide tattoo.
I might still get one.
Wonder
I'm
who
gonna say
has a
one and
Powerglide.
done -J.
Wonder who has a Powerglide tattoo.
Oh, there's definitely people. The guy that got me into the Powerglide, he absolutely has to have one. He was Powerglide or die.
Wow.
Yeah.
Because you could count on it.
Yeah. I mean, he won a lot of races.
Yeah, you could count on it, and it was affordable. I mean, I remember back in the 90s, you could buy a Powerglide that would live with over 1,000 horsepower for like, I mean, it could have been $1,500.
I paid $300,
Damn.
and it never failed.
Do you know how much it costs to have a proper M&M TH400?
Yeah, I have one
And a
in the
proper-
CTSV. $28,000.
That was the number I was going to say.
That hurt. That
I'm
hurt.
out.
Luckily,
Damn.
it was purchased by the customer before we bought the car.
No, I couldn't.
When he told me that number, I was like,
Yeah.
and it's not a lockup? Like,
Oh, no, I'm saying with a lockup.
this is without a lockup.
In the Corvette?
It's a CTSV. We have more than one car.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't do it. I'd have to just buy a Liberty.
Well, I didn't
I'd
know
have
about
to.
that.
Well, yeah, but you're not going to drive a Liberty around on the street.
Who won't?
Well, it falls out of gear. the way the dogs are cut.
Don't ruin my dreams,
So you can-
man. I'm thinking about swapping my Mustang with Liberty. Serious.
It's a Mustang.
What? For real. So what does it do? Because they're straight cut?
No, the dogs are shaped so it can come out of gear under power.
I'm in Puerto Rico. I'm not going that fast.
You can go to Puerto Rico and go to those racetracks and like find someone that has a equalizer in their
I'm
car.
getting on Facebook after
Oh,
this.
Liberty Equalizer. That's what you're shopping for today on Marketplace.
There you go.
Y'all think I'm joking? I'm totally not. She's
Yeah.
over here like, damn, he's
Yeah.
gonna buy a different transmission.
Well, that's one of the problems with the Streamliner with the Liberty is if you pedal it, it can fall out of gear, and you're done. You can't start back. You can't just put it back in gear because it's air shifted.
It's a solid axle one Mustang, so I think we'll be all right.
Yeah, you'll be fine.
It should hook.
What Mustang do you have?
2012 V6.
Okay.
It was her car, and for some reason I just love the car. Don't know why. Don't even drive it, but it's a perfect platform to put something in. And in Puerto Rico, there's all kind of stuff. I bought a dune buggy with a 4G63 in it. Swear to God, I traded a Jeep for it.
That's cool.
And then a guy on the island, Alpha X, he made a computer. $500. Here you go. Get a timing light, check it, full standalone. I wired it up right there in my backyard. Runs like a top. Wideband control, everything. They're innovative out there. But you ever thought you'd have a dune buggy with a 4G63 on it?
No.
Like,
I
how
actually
wild
have
is
never
that?
thought about having a dune
But
buggy
now
with
you
a
should get one.
46. No.
He said no.
No, I have enough cars. I can't have another car right now
Why not?
because there's too many of them already.
How many do you have?
Damn.
Well, it's tricky because there's 2 Supras, a Fox Body, 2 Civics, a Datsun Z, and a Mitsubishi Eclipse.
That's an odd number.
And then the cars out in Arizona, the guys that I race with, like, I help on those cars too. So like right now, the Streamliner could really use 20 grand. It would be in a really good place if I could just put 20 grand into it, but it can't because I got these other responsibilities in my life.
You could build a 2JZ dune buggy, grudge race it at the track.
Win money and then use that money.
You see how
to buy
unrealistic this is?
Amazon. Yeah, no. I gotta listen, Peter Pan. Bring it down.
Look.
That's funny.
I said that because that's how people think nowadays.
Yeah, I can't think like that. I
People
have
really
kids,
do that.
man.
Puerto Rico, half mile's big.
Half mile is,
And we put a 10 speed in it.
Half mile will teach you things about heat.
Mm-hmm.
Because 1/8 mile, you kind of escape the heat. 1/4 mile, you face it, but you've been facing it your whole life. So it's like, you know, like if you got a guy that's breaking his car in the last 100 feet, like I was doing to that Mustang, I didn't need much to get it to go another 100 feet. But when you cross the 1/4 mile mark and you still have another 1/4 mile to go, you're like, that's one of the things that people really don't understand about Bonneville. Like if you are on a highway that the traffic is low and you safely, after you've put your phone down, because you're probably looking at it on the road, you safely put your phone down and you reset the trip odometer and you drive for 5 miles at 80 miles an hour, and you think about flooring your car for that distance, it's a different game. It's a different game. And not only from the heat standpoint, but from the experience standpoint, because you really get the relish. Like, how cool is to floor a car for miles? It's pretty.
Yeah.
I don't think I've
Pretty
ever
wild.
had that bug, but we did go to the salt flats, and we did run the Escalade it was like the entrance, right? But there was nobody there.
Sure.
Yeah, and I gotta clean the frame back up because that salt was bad.
Yeah.
But it was just really, it was surreal because that was the first time I've seen the salt flats.
Yeah.
And, you know, I don't know, maybe I'm just different, but like, you don't think it's salt. Like, it's
No.
like, it's literally just salt forever. It looks
Yeah.
so weird.
Yeah, it's a weird place.
But it was
You
really
got to be
cool.
careful. If you pull off the highway, you can drive right out on the salt flats and get killed
What do you mean?
because there's
Damn.
there's a gully that runs along one side, and there was a group of kids that ended up dead because they were hauling ass across the thing and they hit the gully. It's not, at least if you're gonna go do something dumb, do a proper job of risk analysis of where's the tree I could hit, where's the ditch I'm gonna end up in, where's the gully in this at the bottom of those salt flats that's gonna kill me. Like,
We were in the open spot and it was broad
But-
daylight, and
but
we were in
when you're-
Escalade. We weren't. I don't think we did
sure,
like
but
maybe
when you're
80.
going right, but all I'm saying is like check out the scene
Yeah.
first.
But I think it'd be hard to see that because that was the other thing that kind of got me. It's kind of hard to like when you look out, you know what
Yeah.
I'm talking about.
Yeah.
It's hard to tell what's really happening. Like if it's really that
Man, I
straight
tell
or
you,
not.
when you look down at the dash going 300 miles an hour, and then you look back up, you covered a lot of ground, and the corrections, you know, the things moving around a little bit, and you're just like doing a little bend, and you're like, I wonder what the boost controller's doing. I wonder what the lambda is. You like look down at the dash, and you look back up, you're like, that's a lot. Just went pretty far away. You know, it's pretty
Yeah.
cool. It's pretty cool.
What brought you to that? To
Oh, I think that if you have a little bit of money and you are just riddled sick with cars, where you just want to get all you can, if they take away the drag racing, you'll find something else.
Mm-hmm.
You're never going to give it up. You're just into cars.
yeah.
The sustained time at speed after being in such a surreal environment, and then the community of people that are there and the diversity of vehicles, like it's just a really awesome experience.
They're
Like last
super
week,
helpful, super nice people too.
yeah, there was a father-son team last week I talked to. They have this little supercharged 2-stroke engine, and 2 pistons go like this. It doesn't have a head.
They can press on each other.
Yeah,
I've heard of
2
it.
crankcases.
Well, that's an actual engine. Like I've heard of that
Sure.
before. Yeah.
But there's these guys that have, nitro in a 100cc engine with a blower. I mean, it's the neatest weed whacker you've ever.
just driving through the parking lot
Yeah.
was the wildest
Yeah.
group of cars, motorcycles, things I couldn't tell you what they actually were.
Sure.
It was Speed Week.
Yeah.
And I guess it was raining out, but like the amount of weird stuff that was there, it was
There's
crazy.
no if you are not of good character, you will stick out like a sore thumb, and you're not sticking around.
Yeah.
The pedigree of people out there, the behavior, the vibe, the sunrises, the like, next time you go out there, just try to get in a push truck, and you'll get a little taste of it. It's cool. It's cool. That's why, like, I'll probably say it a lot. It's like, if we don't get out there and bridge the age gap, by the time we realize we want it, we'll have to fight to get it back, because
Yeah.
the salt gets depleted every year. So the salt used to be 6 feet thick, and now it's an inch thick. And
Really?
they pump the salt out to sell it to Ohio to put on the road, or to put on your, Chipotle, and it's a problem, So getting out there and starting to experience that, and like from a tuning aspect, working through the tuning on a boosted vehicle like that, like it's cool.
Yeah. Well,
Like I put boost in a car this year as soon as the tire could take it, and it was going 400 miles an hour. Imagine adding boost
Damn.
at 400 miles an hour,
I couldn't.
and then you watch the data, like in Motec. The Motec data logger is it's probably it's as good as the computer. I mean, kids use it for like video games and stuff. It's a really neat system.
Yeah, they use a dash to log stuff too, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a whole nother thing. But like you pay the data playback and just watch the speed of the vehicle, and you're like, that thing is fast.
Yeah, I watched some of y'all's runs with the overlay.
Yeah.
I think it was the red car. And
Yeah,
when it
but
was
those cars don't accelerate well. The car that I'm talking about is called the Speed Demon.
Mm-hmm.
It accelerates. It's got
that's
the gold car.
the gold long ones, the Speed Demon across the front. Yeah.
Dude, that thing's got a
What kind of G-force is that thing accelerated? Is that a thing that plays into it or
no,
not really?
it's not like a drag car.
Right, but I
when
mean,
you
does that
watch the
sustain
speedometer?
like a G or half a G or something?
Oh,
or?
it's probably like half a G, 7/10.
So that's not something you pay attention to. Like in the drag car, we'll pay attention to
Yeah,
that. But
no, you're managing traction, but as it like passes 200, and then passes 300, and then passes 400, it's just like, holy moly, like twin 88s and engines that could go, like a couple of the engine combinations, like the guy's like, turn it 11. You're like, turn it 11? It's like, just turn it 11. You guys are short shifting it at 9. It's like, holy moly.
Damn.
yeah,
Yeah.
you make that living, then people are like, "Oh, look what I did in the 8th," and you're like, "You have no idea."
Well, just the like that particular vehicle is probably the baddest one that will ever be built, because it was built by the best guys on a open budget, essentially, and there's nothing else like it. Like the car that I race, it's on a budget. I mean, we have to there's a group of guys and everyone puts in what they can, and the car does what the car does. But the Demon was it's the engine, like there's engine parts that not everybody got, and then they got sorted by the best people.
Right.
It's just incredible stuff. Yeah.
What's the one you had to make? You had to add the wing to.
That's the Valley Fever Streamliner. So that car was built in a man's garage at home. His name is Brad Bosworth, and he's a badass dude. Like he used to race like Top Fuel motorcycles.
Those guys are gangsters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like
Different
there's
world.
a story that he tells that him and his best friend were racing this Top Fuel motorcycle, and you do the burnout, and then the other man comes and he pushes you back to the starting line, and the mag was shorted into the chassis, so the guy pushing him back like got hit by the mag and fell out. And he didn't really see it all happen, so he's like he can't figure out how to get the bike back to the starting line, and like you're on this thing,
Yeah.
right? And they laugh about it. It's like the man that got shocked by the mag's like still salty about it. It's been like 30 years because the bike wouldn't run. So Brad was revving the throttle.
Oh,
What's
no.
wrong with this thing? Trying to clean it out, and it was just electrocuting the crap out of his friend. It's like, holy moly. Yeah.
Have you always been into Motec, or because I know I've seen videos you used to use AEM a
Yeah.
lot.
I used. I started off with a computer called an Epic. It was a Ford racing computer that didn't have wideband, and it used the air mass sensor. And that was the computer that was like legal for my Mustang in the class it was in. You could only use that computer.
Really?
And no, there's another computer called a PMS, which is a piggyback. But the Epic was fancy. It could log like 4 things at once. So and then that gave way to messing around with some fast boxes and Excel boxes and MEPI boxes and AEM boxes and Haltech boxes. And the Motec was always there, but everyone always told me that it was too expensive and too complicated. So I just like you and your Powerglide, I cheated myself out of a long time that I could have been making real progress with my career, because I was working with systems that had problems that I wasn't advanced enough to understand their problems. And it wasn't until you spent a couple years with those systems that you began to understand their problems. But by then you're already in a marriage, and you just stay in it because the changing is big. But then I had kind of a coming to Jesus talk. My wife, one day she said, like, what are you mad about? I'm like, man, there's these 2 cars at the shop and they're both broken, and the computer companies now made me wait a year, and now there's no fix, and now I have to, these cars have to come back from out of state, and you got to take the systems out, and you got to, now we just have to buy these customers Motec boxes, and there's a lot of money involved and a lot of time involved. And she said, how about you just never work on those other ones again? I was like, all right. And that was it. And then things got really easier for me.
Yeah, the Motec's really not. It's very daunting, and I'm still very early stages.
You're a Powerglide guy.
Stop it. It's very.
Well, I'm not letting that go.
It's daunting for a lot of people. I'm telling you, it's one time. Yeah.
Sometimes it only takes one time, and you're.
I knew where that was going. I set that one up.
Yeah.
Anyways,
Yeah.
but it's real daunting for a lot of people. But Delgado, I've been friends with him for a long time, and idolized him for the crazy stuff that he does.
But he got caught up in the same thing I got caught up in.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah. We did the podcast with him and we talked about it.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
same thing. Yeah. He kept trying to make something work that just wasn't going to get to what he
Wasn't
was trying
gonna
to
get
do.
there.
Well, he ruined me because I was like, well, I can make this reflex do this and I make this do this. And the reflex and all those, they're great. They have their place for $1,200. It's great.
Sure.
Well, we rode in this 1,200 horsepower C7 with Motec, and it was the only time that and I couldn't really explain. You'll get it, but most people won't. The way that car would cut the power to put the power down, but not lose G-force. That's something that I don't know how to explain it, but you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
That's next level. That's you're not
No.
competing with that.
Well, and so that's the control aspect. You're saying the tuner, an established, experienced tuner, was able to get the vehicle to accelerate in a way that I'm currently unable to get it to accelerate.
Mm-hmm.
So that's that box. Then the other box is the data system. Well, how are you ever going to effectively race a vehicle if there are things that are happening that you don't see because your data logger can't see them? And when I say it can't see them, there are systems that are currently on the market that people will go to the grave defending, that the data systems will never see some stuff that's hindering the performance of the vehicle. So you're like, well, what? It's like, what choice do I have then? It's like, well, you currently, I don't know that you really have a good choice. You just get the Motec.
Right.
And if you have a vehicle like yours that smart guys can do CAN integration and you keep all the functionality of the vehicle.
That's what his port injection setup does. We can run it through the CAN bus, the different modes that the car already has. He has
Dude,
that changing maps.
Chris has got it, man.
Yeah.
That guy has worked really hard for a long time, and he's on the road. He's beating the streets. He's working with a bunch of people all over the place. Like, in the tool of choice, and he'll probably preach it now. It's just like, just get the Motec.
Right. Well, and I was there while I watched him struggle. I watched him struggle with the Pro EFI stuff, and he defended it, and he went to bat
we
for
fought
it.
about it before. Him and I argued.
Really?
And you could
Yeah, it
tell
sucked.
that, and he even said it. He's like, you could tell that he wanted more, and he tried to get more, but it just wasn't going to happen.
Yeah,
And
I did that for a long time.
So-
I spent years. Stifling my growth by not just using the right tools.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was dumb.
I just honestly I just didn't know that
didn't
that was
know.
a thing
Right.
like that.
Yeah.
You could cut power but not lose your momentum.
Like my Supra, I'll target a slip aim, and I'll use 2 fingers on the steering wheel, and the other hand's on the shifter, and I'm on asphalt, and I'll make a rip, and like I put your kid in the car, and your kid's coming home safe.
Yeah.
Like the safety aspect alone, like call that the third box. So you have the ability to produce results, the data system to understand how to
And
make the vehicle faster,
self-diagnose.
and then the safety of not crashing your stuff.
Yeah.
Like people should just be like, I'll take that.
It's a no-brainer, and now that port setup is affordable. It's very relatively affordable.
Cheaper than crashing your stuff.
Not even that. Cheaper than the engine that you're going to crash with.
Yeah.
A lot of things that, because I do tuning full time, right? So a lot of the time that I have, I like to do a lot of testing, R&D. I'm learning a lot of the things. It's like the latency on intake temp sensors. And Delgado was telling me about what he saw, and it relates exactly to what I saw before.
Yeah.
By the time you see 180 degrees, dude, that thing's 350, 400.
I had a.
But people don't realize that. They're like, oh, man, I saved it. I'm like, bullshit, bro.
There's
that thing's cooked.
The other day, I had the luxury of. I was working remotely with a guy in another country, and they're blowing up a really expensive engine over and over and over again. And I get into his data set, and then we're on TeamViewer, and we're going through his data set. And when he realized when the engine started blowing up compared to when it finally blew up, he almost, I was watching his face because we were FaceTiming. I was watching his face, and he was like, huh, there it is. And it was beautiful.
That realization.
And it was the system lost control of the temperature here, and the engine died there. And it's like, yeah, man, it did over and over. How many times did you break it, and how much does it cost to fix it? And it's like, but because he has a Motec system, I was able to point out his problem. I watch, see where the engine speed instantaneous starts to change its waveform. What happened right there? And then you go forward 10 seconds, and now the pistons are dead. It's like, well, let's go back to there. What happened there? That's where it lost control of the charge temps.
Yeah.
And you're just like, your IAT is too slow.
Well, and the amount of modifiers and stuff that it can do, like he was saying that you key on the car, it'll prime the meth. If it doesn't see the pressure, it'll automatically revert to a map that doesn't use meth. It'll adjust the timing for this. And
Chris is
it's
Chris
so
is
wild.
his the amount of time that Chris probably has into his firmware development is I have no interest in ever being that guy, because I'd rather spend time with my kid. It's just because more of my life is at.
That's what held me back from it for so long, was because what I was told, because it's kind of hush hush, it was that if you wanted to do Motec, you have to write your own firmware and all that. And I was like, man, I don't know coding. I don't know
some
that.
Cars, but like right now, you could go on you can go on a website, my website, Motec's website, and you can see what's available.
What's your website?
It's RS Garage. Yeah. So it's like
I want to see.
You can look at what's available, and if you have a motorcycle or a jet ski or a Mercury Marine engine or a big block Chevy or a 13 GT500 or a Porsche 991.2 or whatever the thing is, you just buy a firmware. Now, if you get into weird stuff, Chris has some stuff in his firmware where it's through a driver switch, you do a fuel change and pickle your fuel system. It's just convenient.
Yeah.
But if you're racing a car a lot on methanol and not pickling the fuel system, even if you get control of what damage is happening with your injectors, you're still rotting your cylinder walls because they're bone dry and the rust comes for them. And then all of the valleys in the bore are filled with corrosion, and now the oil doesn't have a place to be there. Now the engine doesn't seal as well, blah, 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 blah. So it's there's so many things that that a simple convenience for a button. Well, that's because he's geeked out pretty hard on that firmware world. Yep. But it takes a lot of time.
When you could tell that he's still got the love for it, because when we were talking about the port setup, I was like, man, how do I not? Because I do a lot of Gen 5, a lot of port setups. I was like, Chris, how do I not know that this is available? And he's like, yeah, I guess my marketing's not good. I'm like, dude, if I didn't even know this was on the market, it's not on the market.
Yeah.
I would have heard about it. But
Yeah.
I asked him, I said, look, I said, one thing that I like about the Reflex and it's 2 IPSI setup is if I call Mike and I say, hey man, is there a way to make this to make this box do this? He'll do it. And Chris is like, dude, I would do that. I'm like, so why aren't we doing this? And
Well, because you, you are right now.
now,
Sure.
but he's had this out for like over a year.
Yeah.
But what I was getting at is it's really cool that somebody like him he's got a lot on his plate, but he was like, look, I'm going to make this setup, but if there's something that you want to implement, and then he did show me how you can take a PID, make your own.
Yeah.
It's wild, but he's like, man, we'll add that, no problem. And he goes, if you want to simplify the tuning, he goes, I'll just break down what you want to adjust, and we'll put it in a window for you.
Yeah.
Like people don't realize that's a thing.
No, there were softwares over the years that you open the software and you get to make a choice of are you advanced tuner or early tuner?
Yeah, HP Tuner says that.
Yeah, and that makes it easier because like today I was showing a guy the Motec and he just checked out because too many things. I'm like, there's 1,000 things, but you really only need 20. Once all get your car tuned by somebody that knows what they're doing, and you got some things to look after.
That's what I told Delgado. I was like, if you can get a base and then we can get a couple people that know how to adjust this, I think this thing would be gold. But it's getting people into Motec. They hear that word and they're like,
Yeah,
and I'm like, come on.
Imagine
They think like big money.
But no,
lot
but
of-
that's
yeah.
it's been a long running. It's bullshit
Yeah.
because it's not true. You're going to spend 70% of the money to get 50% of the results. You're not going to have the data system, and by the time you figure out that you don't really have what it needs to get the excellence, you probably just accept it.
For the reliability.
Yeah.
People are like, oh, this motor will only do this. And I'm like, not if you had proper control of it.
No, I mean, like, there's a lot that goes into it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like the OEM stuff has gotten really good, but it was really good to do what the OEM vehicle was designed to do.
OEM stuff, 8 widebands is still, like Brian was even talking about it, still 1 to 1.5 AFR off per cylinder.
Well, but that's a different conversation because the engine is 8 engines on one crankcase, and there's things happening in the plenum that have a lot of influence. And there's guys that'll argue that when you take an engine that has 8 cylinders that are all at a different AFR and you make them equal, it makes less power.
Really?
Yeah, because you have air doing things in the plenum with wave tuning that, like, you don't understand.
There's a lot more to it then.
Yeah, yeah. Like when you look at John Kazi made that plenum that was made out of plexiglass. It's on YouTube, and he stuck his finger in it, and you watch his finger shake around like a piece of meat without bones in it, because that's what the air is doing in the plenum.
I need to watch that though.
Or you go to an engine dyno and you look at what happens over a carburetor. The fuel is a cloud over the engine.
I have seen that.
So there's a lot
Yeah.
going on.
Wow.
There's so much stuff we don't know.
But like I was saying, and if you really think about it, say now versus 10 years ago, there's 100 times more information out now. But I'd say there's probably 50% less people
Okay.
that are listening to and utilizing it.
If you had an hour to give every day to learning how to move forward better, what would you do with it? You'll probably end up, because of the social climate and then the needs of people's desire to be in groups and systems and interacting with other human beings, you'll end up on Facebook, or you'll end up, back in the old days it was forums, and I think eventually forums will have a resurgence. You're not going to read white papers. You're not going to go where the unmolested information is. You're going to go find somebody with an opinion that you can believe, make it the gospel, and maybe going in the wrong direction for a couple years. White papers are boring.
But it's where the real info is.
Right. And then you have the number of people that are willing to share what they think is right, and they may be right or they may be wrong. You know, like that's if those guys are making a living with that information, they're not going to give it to you.
Yeah.
You know, like the guys that figured out how to get pushrod engines to go to 11, they're not going to talk to you. You know, you're going to have to pony up. You're going to have to get your checkbook out. You know, like it's expensive.
Which is fair.
They paid a lot to get that information.
Yeah.
You know, there was a lot of hours involved. There was nights that they didn't go home and see their families to figure it out. You know, how many mounting points does the valve train have to the cylinder head, and what does that do to influence the engine's ability to rev up? Somebody figured that out. You know,
And they broke a lot of stuff on the way.
you're right.
Yeah.
So, you know, like if you look at the Cup car engine
Yeah.
and you think about valve train stability and you work from the cam tunnel out to the valve cover, and then you think that you're going to go on the internet and buy a valve train solution that's just going to magically get you there, it's like,
Right.
I got some oceanfront real estate to sell you
Yeah.
in Arizona.
Some of the stuff, yeah.
It doesn't work. It's a heavy lift, man.
It's like part of it you want people to kind of work together a little more, but then you kind of have to respect why they
Nah,
don't.
they won't. They won't because we're men. We won't listen to each other until it hurts. When I was heavy doing the tech tip videos, the men that reached out to talk to me in other countries where the information was hard to get, it was incredibly rewarding for me to like. I remember I helped the guy get his Supra started in Africa, and when I looked on the map, it wasn't in South Africa, it was in Africa, and I'm like, holy crap!
Damn.
You know, like that was cool.
But-
no, I think that the next decade of my career will be the thing that will make my life easier and make it possible for me to promote my physical longevity is my Rolodex, and being able to lean on some old relationships, and not making big mistakes in my life. Like there's no, like, I didn't get arrested for doing something stupid. I didn't cheat somebody out of their thing. Like, I think that's the you know, maybe the tortoise and the hare type thing.
Right.
That'll help. And you know, if you're going through that now, it's pretty cool because it's easy to punch down.
Yeah.
You know,
and forever I thought that was the way.
Man, it's almost at times I wonder if it's part of the human condition, because as soon as we are one rung higher on the ladder, you can look down on somebody. And that's just a stupid thing. It's a stupid thing, because if we look up the ladder, there's somebody looking down at us. It's like, we're all on the same ladder, guys. Can we just this week a man called me and he wants to buy a Motec system from me, and he says, well, what does it look like? So here's the system. Here's the costs of the initial support. If you don't have the aptitude to learn, expect this. If I can get you completely self-sufficient, where you are now gaining customers in your weird little world that I didn't even know existed until you told me it existed, where all these guys are ready to go from carburetors and you could be the guy to do it, like, this is what it costs. Like, have at it. Like, I would rather teach that guy and have him get up to speed in a couple years than be traveling to do that work every weekend.
Yeah.
For
well,
sure.
And it's rewarding. Like a lot, there's a couple shops that I dealt with for like 3 or 4 years, and they'll ask questions and they'll start learning the tuning, right? And I'll be like, hey, go ahead and learn it. Once they get self-sufficient, I mean, it's a good feeling. Maybe I'm just getting old and soft, but you know,
Or you're eating.
when you're starting to help
If you're eating
people,
enough.
right.
Yeah.
We're doing okay. There's plenty of business. It doesn't hurt me to help them. And then at the end of the day, me helping them if in the big picture could have helped 1,000 other people not hurt their cars.
Well, and more importantly, the pool that we are working with and working in is small, and people do give up. When you have a customer that he goes on the internet, he finds a shop, it's local to him, he meets the man, it seems like it's going to work out, it goes terrible, he may never do it again. He may stop playing with cars, period.
That was a conversation I had with Nero today. He's like, I don't like installing lowering springs. He's like, but you know what? If I refer them to somebody that I know it's going to do good, or I just take it on myself, yeah, it was a job I didn't want to do. He's like, but if I send him to somebody and it fails, he's like, that guy might have lost his love,
period,
forever. He's like, and that's one less customer that could have turned into 5 to 15 more customers over time. And I'm like, I've never thought of that.
No, I have a couple customers that they started off with this, this little machine, the Subaru or an Evo or Mustang, and now they're in it. Now they're successful grown men, and they want to do stuff.
Right.
They're like, if they would have had bad experiences in their 20s, they may have just stopped.
Or if you wouldn't have taken the little time that, to help them and just be like, hey man, let's do this way. Just follow this. Right. And that's part of why I do this, because the knowledge that I'll learn just today, I learned Powerglides are terrible.
Terrible.
But the knowledge I'll get plus the knowledge that people are going to get listening to this, you can't buy this knowledge. It just can't happen. But nobody puts this out.
That's probably one of the biggest things I missed in my 20s, was I missed the you did that part. I remember I was dating a chick, and I had this a customer that had a twin turbo 4-valve, and it was pretty fast for its time. And I had the car for the weekend. It's like, shake it out, make sure everything's good. And I took it for a rip, and she was like, "Man, you put that thing together and it works like that?" I was like, "That's pretty cool." But I think I was too young to understand that I was just doing my job.
Yeah.
A lot of it's like, you're just doing your job. So if you are doing a job and you're looking for someone to give you credit, you're going to be disappointed.
Yeah.
So you just do the job, and if someone is grateful that you did the job, that's cool.
But it makes a big difference.
It does make a big difference.
It definitely makes me push harder every time.
And you see that a lot with children. If you look at the studies with, like a child will play a game if you let him win 3 out of 10 times. If he loses more than that, he'll never play the game again.
But then you got to decide if you're going to make your kid a winner or not.
Well, then you have to. Then they have to learn to win and lose.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And like the stuff that
I say that only because I looked into that before, because the positive reinforcement thing, and I'm like, yes, but there's a lot of things.
Well, but you can't get a prize for.
Right. So it's like, do I let him beat me? And then what happens when he finds out I let him beat me?
Well, you play a game. You have to play games with people that they have a chance at.
Right.
If you get in a ring with a professional fighter, he doesn't need to give you your 3 out of 10.
Right.
But if you're doing something that you've practiced and you have the aptitude, then you should have it. You should have a shot at winning, not because they should give it to you, because you earned it.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes a lot more sense.
Yeah. But you got to play a game to win. Like if you blow your car up 5 times and now it's in the driveway with a payment that you can make, but it sucks. Mm-hmm. You may just stop playing with the car.
Right.
Like the car game, I don't know if the data exists or if we could have access to it, but not everybody stays in it. And sometimes the men have to leave because of families, and then money changes, and they come back in. I mean, imagine how much it would stink to have left the game 15 years ago, and you were somebody in your own space. You could win a race. Now you come back and everything goes 6s.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm gonna buy a boat. Buy a boat.
Go fishing.
This mess.
I just thought that, that's something that, like, with tuners, I'll ask that question, right? And there's a few that are like, no, I'm doing just as good as I was last year. I'm like, so you suck consistently, right? Because if you're not better than you were last year,
Hey,
that's bad.
I remember looking back at some of my early work, and the cars didn't break.
Well, the crazy thing is you were winning
and
at
they
the
drove
point,
well.
right? Like,
Yeah,
I feel
but it's
like we've always been a little ahead of the curve, but then when I look back, I'm like,
Yeah.
God, I was beating people with that shit.
Well, but what shit did they have?
I know, but it's
Yeah,
just
yeah,
like, but some tuners, and this is, I'd say, probably 4 out of 10. Nowadays, I don't think this is how people used to be, but nowadays, because it's so accessible to be a tuner, people are like, nah, I mean, I run this pretty much same file I've been running for 3 or 4 years. I'm like,
Damn.
bro.
Well,
how?
one of the things that I did when I was doing dyno tuner stuff is I wouldn't use somebody else's file on somebody else's car.
Oh, dude, I get shops that'll buy my tune and then they'll load it in like 15 cars.
No, because you
I see it a lot.
you learn nothing about the vehicle.
Well, they know nothing to begin with.
Right, but if you are if you're taking the customer's money and giving him what he thinks he's paying for, you've got to familiarize yourself with his car because there are different people working on it. And when you spend a little bit of time on a vehicle and you understand the caliber of the technicians and you understand the history of the vehicle, you can give the customer a better job. If you flash like whenever at the second location of Real Street, the dyno was outside and we would rent it. And one day a man came from far away. He was the man. And there were like 18 cars. And he was going to make them all work. Good. And all he was doing essentially was resetting keep alive memory. So the knock learned would go away. Mm-hmm. The cars would pick up 10, 12, 14 horsepower. The customers were happy. They were not. They were a naive group, in a car that wasn't largely popular, and they all left happy. And not one of those cars was more powerful the next day because it would learn the knock and take it back out. And I remember being salty about it. I remember wanting to say, like, you're a crook. You're dumb or you're a crook, but you're not providing an honest service.
Right.
And I was I wasn't really, I wouldn't say I wasn't allowed to do that, but it wouldn't have been good for the company. I wasn't allowed to do it because it wouldn't have been good for the company because now that guy thinks I'm a prick. And now when his customer needs to buy a part, he's not going to buy it from me because I'm the guy. Like,
but in the back of your head, I know it bothers you.
And it doesn't have to anymore because the politics of my life right now are ultra clean. I literally, having business partners, you make compromises because because
it's the betterment of the group.
Yeah, and I don't have to do that anymore. I can just live my life. And I tell you the peace of mind. What having peace of mind does to a person's life, like, it feels real nice. The stress is like, about what? Like, what are you stressed about?
I get what you're saying with the whole lack of stress thing because you were handling this, but you were also responsible for all those people.
Yeah.
And that's way more weight.
And when you're responsible for those people and you want them to be getting what they want, and they're good people. Mm-hmm. I mean, like, one of the things that made Real Street such an incredibly successful company was the people. I mean, we had the best people as far as I'm concerned. Very few. If a person came to work there and they weren't a good person, they didn't last very long.
The group puts them out.
Yeah. It was like, it was like,
yeah, when you all vibe, that one, just like the salt flats.
Yeah. So yeah, that was cool. But the stress of, like, having to mitigate other the kind of person that would go into business for themselves. Like, you got to be half crazy just to go into business for yourself. So like, you're already like,
I don't want to work 40 hours a week, so I'm going to work for 80 hours a week for half the money. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, it's like that. Those strong personalities are already going to be doing some sort of cage match dance, and then there's the kids that are counting on you, and you know they're making money, and the business is running, and there's customers in motion, and there's, you know, like if there's cars in a shop on top of all that, like not having cars, like I have a few cars that are outside cars. That's it. If someone says, "Hey, I saw you on that podcast. I want to bring you my car," it's like, no,
Yeah.
nope. It's too many things. There's too many things to sort out your car, and even if you'll pay me for every single minute I was going to spend on it, I don't really have those minutes for sale right now because I got this other thing I got to do.
Right.
So I'm just not like. That's why I like the engine work, because the engine work is go no go. I know when I put the engine together exactly what it is, and I can say like, this engine will live if the customer doesn't go outside of the rules. This engine's going to live.
Right.
It's going to be fine. It's a good engine, you know? Like, I have no worries there. But working on cars, it's like, ugh.
So many variables. So much stuff out of your control.
You're working on modern vehicles.
Mm-hmm.
So someone buys a C7 Vet from a guy that it was his dream car, and he finally got to the point where he could afford it, and he bought it, and he didn't drive it that much, and then he sold it to some young kid, and that young kid brings it to you, and he's like, it's time to make some power. No one's really worked on that car. It's not screwed up.
Right.
But when you're working with older vehicles, that one bad technician could ruin a vehicle forever. Like, people call me, my friends will call me, hey, I want to, my car's doing a thing. I want to take it to a shop. Do you know anybody? Well, what kind of car is it? Oh, it's that kind of car? You take it to that man. It's that kind of car? Take it to that man. And I know there's some technicians out there that can slide across and work on a lot of stuff pretty good.
Right.
But those guys are far and few. So why don't we just take it to a specialist? If you want to, like the other day, a man called me for an engine that I don't build. And I'm like, no, because there's going to be one thing. You know, like I built turn of the year. There was a guy with an MG engine. And I know, but the man is in the last stage of his life, and he just wanted his car to run, and he couldn't find anyone else to do it. And he's a man that helped a friend of mine, a dear friend of mine, solve a very big problem in his life. Mm-hmm. So I'm gonna fix the guy's engine. Man, I bet I could have built 3 JZs in the time it took me to build this one ancient 4-cylinder that needed so much love in silicone.
Man.
It still leaked.
No.
No?
I suck checked that thing for a while. I'm like, this thing is not leaking oil when it leaves here. But it needed silicone in spots you wouldn't suppose it needed silicone. Because it was like the pan rail and the oil pan and the front cover, like those things were like hanging out in the same area, but none of them ever really had met.
I thought that's how you keep the MGs alive, because it's so wet over there, right? Is the leaks. That's what I was told by an Englishman.
Oh, man. Yeah.
But that all goes back to the same thing of, like, yes, you could have done those other motors and made that money, but because you love this,
yeah.
Tell me the satisfaction of what you got from that man isn't 10 times what that money would have been.
The satisfaction came when he came and picked it up. I told him how much. He paid with a smile. And I said, hey, you know, I want to ride that motorcycle sometime. And he said, come get it sometime. And if I ever made the time to go get it, I could have the motorcycle for a weekend. And I know all I need to know about the motor. Either I need to buy that motorcycle, or that was a really good weekend test driving it and I don't really like it. Like, I was all hopped up on buying a car a while back, and I went on Toro and I rented it for the weekend. I'm like, I don't want to own that car. I mean, I looked at him for months. I really thought I wanted the car.
Turo caused me to buy the Teslas.
Yeah.
I rented a Plaid out here in Miami.
Well, you know, one thing that's neat about the Tesla is, unlike the Powerglide, it's 1 speed. It just goes forward.
Oh my god.
This isn't the one you want to get into right now.
I'm just saying.
Because if you,
It does go backwards too.
they
And it
do,
goes forward.
they do.
But you don't ever have to
Oh
touch
my
the shifter.
God.
But they're fish. Well, the Model 3, you have to click it.
Oh, it's got the
but
little
that fancy
thingy on it.
plaid, it knows. You just press the
knows.
brake, and it decides if it wants to go backwards or forwards. You can argue it, but the electric stuff's cool. It's absolutely not the future. Hybrid is the future, in my opinion. But you
Yeah.
can't negate that they're cool. I would never go to an electric car drag race. That's got to be the most boring thing
When I was a
ever.
kid, I had RC cars, and when I looked at what the men went through to run their nitro RC cars, I knew I needed electric.
Yeah.
And there's probably something to be said for that.
Yeah, but like, could you imagine an electric car drag race? Like an electric car Florida 2K. That would be the most boring thing you've ever seen in your life.
It could possibly be worse than DCT drag racing.
Oh my god.
Oh, you're really trying to get them, aren't you?
I know.
No, DCT is awesome. Like I had an F80 6-speed and I had an F80 DCT, and I would buy the DCT car all day, every day, each time. Like I had I had a Porsche with a PDK all day, every time.
Yeah.
But it's not for a drag race. It's an incredible way to manage power. Those boxes are incredible, but they're not for drag racing. All I'm saying is, like, if you're going to go drag racing, use a drag race transmission.
Well, most of us didn't know about it until now.
Yeah.
Watching it, you're not going to be able to find a Liberty anymore. We're going to be
Right.
jamming them in Corvettes because that will fit in a Corvette. May not be able to stick a 10-speed back there, but we can fit that thing. It's only-
They make 10 speeds.
It's big. Yeah.
I think they make a 10-speed Liberty.
We shouldn't need it. We need 5. You said 5.
Yeah, well, there's 5s and there's 7s. There's 10s.
I could
Because it
probably,
goes again.
I could
all
probably
that-
afford 3 and finance the other 2. But
All right. There's an active drag race happening right now. We should go back to the racetrack if it's not wet.
is there? What?
Should be. They're trying to finish it today.
Really?
Ain't no way.
I thought they had tomorrow.
Tomorrow it's supposed to rain.
Yeah, it was
But
supposed to rain
it
the last
rained
3
all
days.
day. It rained like all night. I mean, a couple hours ago.
Who's racing right
Pouring
now?
down.
Check it out.
Can we
Okay.
get it? Can we get into like the first time you got into Real Street, like the year you got into Real Street? Because I know that's where like most of your videos, tech tip videos, came from.
Sure. So, when I did like a 10-year bid with the Mustang guy, and that was over. And there wasn't anyone else in town I could work for, like, and feel good about it, because you knew all the players. You'd been in the town forever. So who else were you gonna go work for? So it's like, oh, I'll start my own company. I'll figure it out. It was probably one of the most reckless things I ever did, because I had no business being in business. I was a technician that was good at the cars I worked on, and I worked hard. A lot of work didn't scare me, but I had no interest in business. And it was a lot of time that wasn't fun. But when I look back, it would have been so easy to fix it if I just would have been able to properly identify where the problems were. So the learning curve was rough. And you know, then, 18 years later, you come out on the other side of it.
Right.
And you're like, I wouldn't do that again. Like, wouldn't do it I wouldn't do it that way again. I learned a bunch.
Mm-hmm.
So, in the beginning, it was you want a supercharger and an engine built, and you're gonna need axles and a differential and the clutch and some gauges, and like, yeah, sure, I could do all that stuff, but having to have that, you have that, and then you have the business, and then to try to have a social life outside of that, it was messy. I was messy. My life was messy back then.
Really.
But it's not like it turned out as a failure either, though.
No, because I
So
was
something
resilient.
had to have-
Well, because I wouldn't give up.
Okay.
It wasn't that I just wasn't gonna give up. Like I remember I was engaged in my 20s, and the woman I was engaged to, she was watching me suffer through this experience, and she said like, you realize that company will never love you back. And I was like, I'll show you. And then like, I was washing my car a few weeks ago on a Sunday morning, and I heard what she said in my head, and I was like, oh, she was right. I probably should call her and tell her she was right. Because the company only wanted what the company wanted. The company didn't, like, the company wanted numbers to be produced, and that was it. And that was, you know, that was the lesson on the way in and the lesson on the way out. And it was a super cool lesson, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. And it had this big meat in the middle of really incredible experiences doing the work that I love doing.
Can I say something?
Sure.
Isn't that what a company's supposed to do?
What?
Not love you?
Bring the bring the numbers in.
Yeah. Sure.
Like,
Right, but when
But
you're
we'd
doing
like
it
to
because
think.
you love it,
Well, there's the problem.
That's the issue.
That's the issue.
You have to be you got to be one or the other, and he loves it.
I know, but
So to love it and to want everybody to be super happy, to be super business oriented, you got to separate that. That's
yeah,
hard.
it's not. I'm just not that guy.
Right.
Like if you said that, like there's a lot of, when you get to the grown up age, you realize like you can make money pretty easily.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things that make money. There's men. I've met some men that they weren't incredibly sharp, but they would look around. You know, if you're an electrician, you live where the construction is. Maybe you follow the hospitals. You find where the money is. You just
Right.
build.
Right.
You just follow the money, right? So it's like there's a positive. Like people say, like follow the money when something's going bad wrong, but you also follow the money if you're trying to make money. So there's a lot of ways to make money. But if you're trying to make money and have fulfillment from your investment of time, you have to like your job. And I think that's difficult for a lot of people.
I think it's difficult to make. Like, I mean, I could probably make 3 times the amount of money I make at a job that I hate.
Sure.
But the amount of time that we get to spend with my family and the enjoyment with the customer, I feel like it negates that money. As long as we can live
Well,
happily, it's good.
maybe we're wrong. Because maybe the way to do it is to get properly educated and apply yourself in a company that will reward you for your effort. And even if you don't like the job, you're there for 40 hours a week, and then you have the money to have your fun doing whatever you want. When you're trying to double dip, I want my work to be fun and my life to be fun, it could get sticky.
I just don't know that you would, in a 40-hour work week, make enough to negate it.
I don't know. I have friends that have they're regular tradesmen, and like one of them is done by 3 every day, and he's a plumber.
But what did he sacrifice to get there? How many years did it take him to build
He's not
to
that
get to
old.
that point?
a lot. You know.
He's not that old. If you want to go be a plumber or an electrician and you're clean with your work and you don't screw people over, you could make a lot of money being a plumber. They just didn't tell you that.
Right.
There's a lot of trades. Like if you want to be a finish carpenter that can hang doors correctly and put trim on right,
Cabinetry.
cabinets,
Yeah.
like a lot of trades, you can make a lot of money, and as long as you just apply yourself and do good work, you could have a race car and all that stuff on the side. You know, like a structural steel welding guy. I worked on some guy's car a couple months ago, and he's got a weld shop, and he's just a good guy doing a good thing, and he's playing with cars just like anyone else wants to play with cars. Like I think a lot of the problem in our industry is a lot of guys just like me, they got in and they try to make their hobby a way to pay bills. And because it's their hobby, they don't have good boundaries. They'll overinvest in time. They'll overinvest in customers. They'll overinvest in staff. They're not making any money, but they're making enough money to stay alive, so they don't even know they're not making any money. And some years can go by, and if you, unfortunately, it could beat you down. You could start drinking. You know, you could start doing things that are bad for you, and then you're spit out on the other end of it.
Yeah.
It's a slippery slope.
The crazy thing is I've seen that from other people, and most of the time they don't know.
Who knows?
Like, well, I mean, a lot of times the outside people will see it starting to go, and they don't want to say anything.
Sure, but if you step
But then,
on a
like
scale,
you said, how do you approach it?
if you got on a scale every quarter, your weight's going up or your weight's going down. Like, if you're going bald, it doesn't happen overnight. Like, all these things happen over time.
Mm-hmm.
But you've got to be able to put some dates in the book that you're really going to look yourself in the eye and say, like, what's going on? And that takes a certain amount of maturity. So if you don't have the maturity to really look in your own eyes and be at peace with what's going on, you need data.
Right.
So the data could be the scale. The data could be your balance sheet. The data can be, you know, like you ask a couple people that care enough about you, what does my life look like from your perspective? And if they say, like, looks like you work a lot. You missed my kid's birthday last month. That kind of sucked. You know, we've been friends for 15 years and you couldn't even show up and eat a hot dog and, you know, like have a piece of cake and we could talk about something. Like, well, maybe you're over investing in work, but like you gotta have some data.
Yeah. It just seems like from what I've seen, most people, it gets so bad so fast, and they don't want to know. They don't want to say that they're failing, and they don't want to ask for help because apparently it's wrong to ask for help.
Well, you could end up an alcoholic.
But I see it a lot. Like a lot of the guys, fabricators, you know, some of the best fabricators I've ever met, drugs or alcohol.
Fabricators got it tough,
But,
because
I mean,
those guys are artists.
Extremely.
When you take an artist and you make an artist struggle, they don't have, most of them, they don't function well.
It just seems weird to me, like the guys that have that crazy talent. Like you're like, that is insane.
Yeah.
A lot of them, I'd probably say 6 out of 10, don't keep doing it. They end up going into drugs or alcohol. I don't know what the deal is.
Well, or they get jobs, but they need mentors.
I did see one fabricator that was like Michelangelo of freaking pipes, and he's an accountant now.
Yeah.
I'm like.
But you know what?
He makes money, but
I bet he puts a welder back in his garage one day, and I bet he makes something.
he doesn't weld anything and won't weld anything anymore.
Oh, he had to kill it.
So depressing.
Yeah.
So depressing. I can't even get him to weld anything for me.
Yeah.
He just won't do it.
I have my neighbor next to my shop. He's an extremely talented fabricator, and he's an engineer. He's everything. I mean, the guy can cook you a steak or build you a staircase. He's just out of this world, and I'm always like, weird, no tattoos. You know, because like you meet most fabricators, like they got
some kind of itch there.
Yeah, it's just like weird, no tattoos. Yeah. That guy built some sick stuff. We got some parts with him in process, and he delivers. He's one of those guys where you if you think he's expensive, then you don't understand.
Yep.
Yeah, like that. Like one of the things that people should probably start thinking about in their builds is if the guy, it's just like you said, like if someone's talking bad about a guy, like maybe you should take a second look.
Yep.
You know, if you think someone's expensive, what exactly are they selling? Are they selling a product with no support? Or are they selling a piece that you need to get the experience that you want? Because those two things may be different.
What's that argument I have with a lot of shops? They're like, oh, well, you know, I'm priced this way because all these shops charge this. And I was like, are you producing the same as them? Are you producing better than them? They're like, well, better. I'm like, okay, so if you do better work for the same price that they do it or cheaper because
Yeah.
you want that business, are you going to feel that drive every day to do the better work?
Yeah.
Or should you charge a little more, right? And now you feel like, okay, I'm charging 200 an hour versus the 160.
Yeah.
This is more worth my time. I'm going to put in that extra effort.
Yeah, when I started my new company, I looked at well, I need to not go backwards financially, so I'm gonna have to need this amount of income. So how much can I do, and what does it look like? And I had to like just come up with a quick plan. And when I priced my engines, I priced them based off of what it was gonna take to make my house work, not what the competition was charging. And a couple months in, I looked at what the competition was charging, and some of the guys charge a lot less.
Yeah.
But I know them, and I know their process,
Right.
and I know who's doing it, and I'm just like, and I've seen them after they've been taken apart, or they took themselves apart, and I'm like, not that expensive.
Well, that's a
And this
lot.
is on the 2JZ, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
A lot of
Yeah.
things, like, you know, they're like, oh, well, man, I don't want to tell the customer that price or whatever. And I was like, dude, if you just real with a customer and you're like, listen, I know I'm more expensive.
Yeah.
This is what I'm going to deliver
Yeah.
to you. The customers, from what I've noticed that are really into this,
Yeah.
they don't care.
No.
They're going to pay it because they know when they pick it up, it's good to go.
Have you seen that? It's like a meme where it says, the one customer, you send the invoice, and he says, like, I'll wire the money tomorrow. And the other customer
Yeah,
says,
I've
like,
seen
we're
that.
getting in a relationship, and I want to know.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. I've seen
There's
that
a
one.
couple young men that I'm working with right now, and I've got way too much time into them for the transaction. And one of them, I'm even giving him a bit of a break because he got hosed by the last guy. But I hope he learns something. If he can walk away from the transaction more armed to not be taken advantage of again, then I feel like I'm investing in that young man, and it'll come out in the wash.
So something I've noticed, and this is tried and true, at least on my industry, GM, you know, because we're the peasant bunch. I can accept that. Powerglides.
Powerglides.
Something I've noticed, and this is tried and true, 100%. You go out of your way for somebody. 99% of the time, that person burns you. You want to so the guy that doesn't ask you for a discount, right? He just, hey, here's my bill, right? You give that guy a discount. He's grateful, cool, everything's fine. The guy that you try to hook up because you feel bad for him,
Yeah, you're not wrong.
that guy almost always
Yeah.
burns you. They don't all, but it's got to be 99%.
Yep. I know exactly what you're talking about, and I think
But
you're
how do
right.
you mitigate that?
You accept the lessons that you're learning.
These lessons get expensive sometimes.
I know, but they're your lessons to learn. And when you're tired,
It's made me sour over the years.
but then somebody would say, well, then why do you keep making the same mistake? Because the minute the red flag is thrown on the play, you have a choice to stop. Like the young man that I'm talking about, I'm probably like an hour and a half into this kid. It's like he's like my nephew now.
But
you
he
know?
probably didn't ask you to help. You offered to help. And that may be
no,
different.
he did ask me to help
Okay.
because he has a program that has potential, and he has potential, and if he sticks with it, that will be my reward.
Okay.
I can't have all my customers like that, but some people, if I believe in the person, if I like them, you know, like,
He's that
I
1%.
tell you, there's some guys that as soon as they start talking, I'm ready to, like, I got diarrhea. I got to go home right now and use the bathroom. I'm out of here. Like my tummy is turning.
Yeah.
And I see it right away. You know, so it's like if someone gives me the heebie-jeebies, like it doesn't matter how much money they have.
Yep.
Not like, no way, because it's my
Yeah, but if it's the guy
experience,
that's
too.
telling you how much money he has, he doesn't have that money normally, or he does,
Yeah.
and it's not worth the money.
Yeah.
Yeah, hey, and that's okay too. I mean, like you have to keep in mind, a lot happened before you met a person.
Well, I'm saying I've always been big on whether they're just doing a tune or they're doing a build, treat them equal.
Yeah.
You get those few guys that want to throw that money in there, you know. And when I was a lot younger, I was like, oh man, I could put you ahead of the line. But then when I thought about that, I'm like, I just pissed off 12 people.
Yeah.
To help this one guy.
No, if
and
I have
I made
to move,
the same amount of money.
If I have to move the line, I have to get up at 5 and go in. If I move the line, if someone needs an engine, like I have a racer next week that he's picking his engine up at the end of the week, I have to move the line. But my Monday and Tuesday are already sold, so that means I got to go in at 5. But I one thing that's different about this round versus last round is I asked if it's going to be good for me, because I don't want to be sad.
Right.
The other day I went to work and I had I'm building this JZ, you know, Brian Crower stroker, CP pistons. The parts are gorgeous. Everything measures like nut. It's a nice engine. And I got like this this set is coming out of the radio, and it's like I'm on a Tribe Called Quest station, and the jams just keep coming. And I'm like, I can't believe I'm getting paid for this. It's perfect. And those are the days I want to have. Yeah. I am not interested in what used to happen. Like that was crap. But I did it. Yeah. I don't blame nobody for it. I just didn't know any better at the time. I was a kid.
That's just taking the lesson.
Yeah, you take the lesson. Yeah.
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 I'm done with the lessons.
Yeah.
I'm hoping I'm done with the lessons.
Well, it's your choice to make.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like I found where I'm good at, what I enjoy, and what keeps me financially happy.
Yeah.
And lets me have enough time with my family.
Yeah. No, I like the idea that if I lived long enough to retire, I could do it. My retirement would be me messing with cars.
I was gonna say, do you think you would actually retire?
I wouldn't retire. I want to stop working for money. I just want to do what I love. My friends out there with my Bonneville guys, like they don't have to work for money. Every day they get up, meet at the same breakfast place, go to the shop, beers by 4, see you tomorrow. Every day they work at the car shop.
Wow.
I mean, there's race cars that get worked on every day, and these men can cut and weld and wire and build. And I wish they put a dyno there, because I would go there more often probably.
Yeah.
You know? But they're not working for money. They're doing what they love.
Yeah.
You know? So I want to get to that point in my life. So I think the next 10 years I could probably like get it put together, and that'd be cool. But as far as, you know, the getting into transactions that with people that it's not going to go good,
right?
Or spending time trying to convince another grown man that there's something over there they need to pay attention to, I'm not doing that again.
Right.
No way, Jose.
So what is your goal right now for RS Garage? What is
RS Garage needs to get. I've got this killer race car. It's so gorgeous. I need to get it running, because that's going to help. That's going to help create sales leads. So that car needs to eat some cash. I'm going to try to feed it through the sale of engines. I've got a good amount of engines in process. Like right now, there's about 23 they're not sold, but they're in process. And as they come through, they'll be processed and they'll be sold. And so I'm acquiring cores, putting the engines through process, paying for the bills, trying to put some money aside to get the race car running. Like, I'd really like to have the car, like FL2K next year. That would be a neat goal. But that means I got to be testing before the year ends.
Yeah.
I've got the Datsun Z project with an RB26. I've always wanted to build some RB26 stuff. And now some of those jobs are coming in, and I've got my own in process. I want to get that car running and see if it's fun. If it's fun, take it back apart, put it through paint. because once I take it apart, I won't see it for a year. It's going to paint jail.
Right.
But I want to make sure it's fun before I send it to paint jail. And then my Mustang is gonna get worked on. It runs and drives. I beat on it at least once a week. I'll take it out, make a rip, and it's got a dog box in it, and it's got stacks, and it's freaking awesome. Yeah, it's got a Motec box, and it's just awesome. So starting to filter those cars back into media, because at Real Street, everybody got too scared to put cars in media, and it just like really turned the music off. So
For outside looking in, it seems like, what I knew of Real Street was there was cars at the track, bannered on the side, and they were out there kicking some ass.
Yep.
I haven't seen that lately.
Well,
Do you think it's just like more focused on?
it's a business. It's
Just like that Donut Media. I don't know if you ever watched that on YouTube. Donut
Yeah.
Media. We used to watch it. It was awesome. Another company bought it, and they turned it into a business. All those guys are gone. Nobody watches that.
Well, I think that Real Street as a company is a good company.
I'm not saying I don't think it's a good company. I think it's lost its roots, and that's just an outside looking in. This is just.
Man,
I know it
tell
sucks
you,
to say that, but think
I
about
tell you,
it.
a part of me could tell you that it's okay that you feel that way, and a part of me could tell you that I was the root at one point, and I would be right on both sides. But the infrastructure that the company has and the intelligence of one of the men there will keep it going just fine, and it will be a place that when you pick up the phone and you know what you need, it will you'll order it and you'll get it, and there's not a bunch of BS. The ordering, it's $1 million website.
Right.
I mean, it's $1 million website can properly process sales leads, get the customer what they need accurately, and it's a distribution center.
Yeah.
It probably will never be what it was, but it doesn't need to be what it was, because it is what it is now. And what it is a distribution center.
I get that, but it just this is nostalgia kind of on my part, and I know other people have to feel the same way, and I was just kind of curious. So basically, what you're saying is what it is now. It's a moneymaker, but it's not going to be at the track. It's not going to be Real Street out there burning it up.
They can make that decision. That's their decision to make.
Right.
There are 4 partners there, and if they decide that it's time to go back to the track, they'll go back to the track. I mean, Titan took a time off the track.
Yep.
And maybe when Titan took time off the track, those men slowed down enough to start families.
So maybe it's a good thing.
You never know.
Right.
This could be the best series of changes that company goes through, and on the other side of it, it ends up in a great spot, and those guys get exactly what they need, or they get exactly what they wanted, or they get exactly what they thought they wanted, or they want something completely different. But it's their show now.
Or they start building electric cars with Powerglides.
It's like that math meme where it's like calculating. It's like, which way would the dolphin snort the cocaine? Would it be this way or that way?
You could just fund your race car with feet picks. You don't have to shake nothing. That's the thing too. You sell your socks. Somebody told me a long time ago, man, there's an ass for every seat. And I used to think that wasn't true until I saw the girl that sells her farts in a jar. She's
We
a
live in a
millionaire.
weird time.
She farts in a
We
jar.
live in a
She's
weird
millionaire.
time. You know what? If I could give some advice to these dudes, these young dudes that are coming up in this weird world, mow your own grass, wash your own car, stick to one woman.
Yeah. That's a solid thing.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
now we
Try
have
to-
robots to mow the grass, and nobody washes their car anymore, which is pretty sad.
Yeah.
And everybody thinks that they need everybody.
And everybody feels empty.
Yeah.
Damn.
Not everybody, but a lot of people.
A lot of people.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, we're living a weird time. It'll be okay. This show's been going on for a long time.
It's one of those things that's not in our control right now. So
Yeah. Yeah, and don't watch the news. Don't watch the news. And don't subscribe to OnlyFans, girls. You're not helping those young girls. You're not, because next year there's going to be a prettier girl with less wrinkles, and those girls are never going to be able to look themselves in the mirror.
I know, but like, could you imagine while they're so depressed with themselves as they count their millions of dollars in their Lamborghini crying?
They'll forget to pay their taxes and it'll all get repossessed. You know? You think they got into OnlyFans because they're good at accounting? Come on, man.
I don't know,
Are they
man.
jumping on
Easy
the
come, easy go.
It's a crazy world because like that whole TikTok thing. I'm like, these kids are stupid making these videos. I work for those kids now. Like, what the fuck is this? It's a weird world. So it's like it's hard to tell where the future is gonna go because you never thought that you'd have an 18-year-old kid making videos on a cell phone making $15,000 a month.
I hope they're putting a large amount of it away.
Most of them aren't.
I know, but then
But I know some of them are.
But then it won't matter. I mean, when you go back to those 90s films about drug dealers, like Juice or American Gangster, like it's easy come, easy go.
Yeah.
Like the only way, nobody gets out of this alive. So you, as early as possible in your life, make decisions that you can die in peace. And that means don't cheat people. Don't slight people.
Right.
Don't push down on people. Don't punch down on people.
That's the hard one.
It's up to you.
That's the hard one. It was just a personal thing, but like I
used to do it too.
Yeah.
I look back at 20-something-year-old me, and I'm like, oh, it's real dumb.
Yeah.
It was real dumb. And you learn.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's okay.
Still sucked.
Don't get a Powerglide tattoo.
This one. I made bad decisions when I was younger. It happens.
That's probably not the only tattoo.
He said the no.
Is that a Chinese tattoo? Is that a Chinese tattoo?
It was funny when he said, "Where's this tattoo?" I'm like,
What is it? Hold
That's
on.
me.
What does it mean? What does it mean?
I don't know, dude. I was
Yeah.
young and stupid.
Yeah.
It probably means mayonnaise and mustard. Who knows?
White duck.
Why?
No, like for real, it's supposed to mean love and hate, right? Because that was my thing, right? It was cool. And
I didn't even
I was
know you
at
had
SEMA,
tattoos.
and this lady's like, "Oh, love." I'm like, "Don't tell me what the other one means." She goes, "Hate, anger." I'm like, "Fuck yeah."
Yeah, they didn't get you.
Yeah, 'cause you never know. They could totally put,
I know, man.
Tesla love.
The other day I
Something,
saw a young girl, a pretty young girl, and she had a tattoo on her face.
Oh,
And I thought,
God. That
the person
thigh
that-
tats.
like, someone should have said, I want to do this for you. Can we wait 2 years? Just
Yeah, but
2
now that
years.
person will get sued if they do that.
What, tell them to wait?
Yeah, you can't do that. People
Why?
get offended really easily. They can sue you for being offended. Emotional stress. That's a thing. That's happened. That's a thing. Yeah, you cannot tell her what to do with her body.
It's hard to think that we
That's
had
true.
men that came
Yeah.
back from wars and we expect them to manage their problems, and we don't expect our youth to manage their problems. That's a weird world.
Yep.
And on a positive note,
Have you ever said like what was your purpose of making the videos, the tech tip videos? Have you ever like, was that just your job at Real Street or?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I didn't understand it at first.
Mm.
What I understood was working on cars as much as I could wasn't ever gonna be the right place for me there. So the tech tips were a way to share information. So the way that the company was set up was you had guys that knew the internet. They were younger. They knew that the internet could be used to have a sales business. But if they didn't know about the thing they were selling, they needed a bridge.
Yeah.
So I was just a bridge. So I could put an engine together. I could make a car run. I could make a car get down a track. I could make some horsepower. I could do all those things, which would create sales leads. So that was my place there. That's what I did.
You were the bridge.
That was the bridge.
Right.
Yeah. There was opportunity, and in order to realize the opportunity, you needed the knowledge about the product, and I was just connecting those two dots.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Now, once I started travel tuning and seeing the effect that it had on people, that's when the light kind of started to come on and be like, holy crap, like, you know, I'm helping people.
Right.
And that felt good. And then to be able to, when you meet people and you've helped them, they want to meet you, and they just want to be friendly. So, you know, the large majority of places I go, there's probably 6 people in the industry that I'd rather not see. And that's not many. The large majority of people that I run into, like, it's fun.
Yeah.
You know? Like today I talked to these 2 kids. They both have the same project car. And the one of them's got 4 millimeters more turbine. And one day they're going to figure out exactly what that means. Because they're going to race. Mm-hmm. And the ones will be a little bit faster. But it was cool. They're just kids. And these are kids, man. These dudes, like, one of them was in his teen, like 19 and 22.
Those are the ones that are using that access to the knowledge that's out there.
But you have like high school kids. Like when I meet a high school kid that has watched the videos, I'm like, man, I got a pretty long bridge.
Yeah.
So that's cool.
Yeah.
You know, and I just have to kind of stay on the same course, and it'll be all right.
You didn't want to talk about what happened with Real Street, why you left Real Street?
I've already said enough.
Okay.
Yeah. I think we're
the explanation of it, because you only have one outcome. Because when you need somebody for something and the need is fulfilled, there's no more need for that person, right?
Yeah.
Like
I get it.
The way it goes.
Yeah. But we also don't want to spotlight, you know, too much into that. This is a new chapter.
Yeah.
That new chapter, happy life.
A lot of that stuff will be just what it is.
Yeah.
And really, I could take a lot of time, and I could tell you things that are uncomfortable to talk about, but it'd be a waste of time. Because the fact of the reality is, you got a kid that didn't go to college, that was in love with cars, that got to be a car guy for all these years. Now he's got a family, a killer place to live, and a bunch of cool cars. Sounds pretty good. I had to pay some taxes. Mm-hmm. The way that I look at it, like what happened at the end there, I had to pay some taxes.
Yeah.
You know, and it wasn't a monetary thing, but it was also a lesson. And I got to learn the lesson, you know? So I don't even, like I said, man, there's few people in this industry that I don't want to run into.
Right.
Gotcha.
And a lot of people I like running into. So it's all good.
But at the end of the day, you can hold your head up. You had fun. You did what you loved.
Yeah.
And you can continue doing that now.
Yeah.
Without the stressors.
Yeah.
And without the responsibility of feeling like you have to help somebody else eat instead of yourself.
Man. Well, we never had that. We had a really good sharing program for a long time. I mean, we shared for a long time. If I worked on a weekend and had some cash in my pocket, it landed on other people's desks on a Monday. Because that's what you do.
Which would explain why it's so successful and why it ran so well.
Yeah.
And as you said, everybody kind of had that link.
It was a homogenous mixture for a long time.
Right.
You know.
I mean, you can kind of tell that too when y'all are at the events. There's never, you know, everybody got along. Everybody kind of, you know.
No, it was cool for a long time.
Cars going up, the whole team was there.
No, it got
smooth.
uncool at the end. But
obviously,
what are you gonna do?
Yeah.
It matters if I insist it matters, or it doesn't matter if I insist it doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
But the reality of the situation, the reality of the course of my life, it's just how it happened, in the position that I'm in now, with some time left, and a good bridge, and a bunch of people that just want to work with me.
Yeah.
The connections.
That's
Holy
awesome.
moly, man!
Yeah, it's awesome.
Like, it's a good spot.
But and you got something to offer for a lot of other people as well. You know, whether you decide to delve that out or not. I mean, you were able to gain so much experience. Same thing, like I say, with like Delgado. You know, you were given that opportunity to give that experience.
Yeah.
You know, so you're coming out of it with something that is extremely valuable to people like me, and you know, people that want to learn this stuff.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there's positive and
No,
in a lot of
it's,
the negative.
For sure. But there's always there's a cost to doing business. You know?
Yeah.
That's all. It's not that big of a deal.
Yeah.
You know? It's if I were more neurotic, or if I wanted to be a loser about it, there's some rocks to kick. But it's a
Yeah,
waste
but
of
there's no.
time.
Sometimes it's just not worth even going there.
Yeah.
Right.
Nah, it's as long as I can keep my thing going and have fun with my time, I don't really care.
And if not, we kick rocks
No.
and sell feet pics.
No, no. 'Cause I have to live my life out with being able to see the logo and have it not sting. So a certain amount of forgiveness has to be occurring. Like when I was out of town for 5 days, I come home. My 7-year-old says, "I got a present for you, Dad." I open up a box, and it's one of the keychain lanyards that didn't get thrown away. And all I can say is like, "Oh, baby, that's great." She goes into her room. I put it in the garbage can.
Damn.
That hurts though.
But it doesn't have to. It just has to be over.
I was
Yeah.
talking about you. It hurt me.
Oh, yeah.
Before we wrap this up real quick, where did the logo come from? Because that was pretty damn genius.
Clay's
Something so
idea.
simple.
I had Real Street was a class that I raced the Mustang in. That's why this is on my Mustang from 2003. This RS.
Okay.
Red. So, then Clay, one day he came in and he said, "What do you think about this?" And I was like, "That's great."
The street sign thing.
Yeah, because nobody else was using green back then.
Yeah. It was solid because it popped out. You caught it. It was
No.
a good play on words.
Yeah,
It worked
yeah.
out well.
The guy Clay is an incredible mind.
Mhm.
He just got an incredible mind. Yeah.
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 Nice.
His Real Street Performance was the original thing. I still have one of my first business cards.
Nice.
The slogan was "Performance with Integrity," because not a lot of people don't screw people in our industry.
We're from Houston. I see it a
You guys
lot.
got some screwing going on out there.
Yeah.
They're inbreeding at this
The
point.
screw capital. No, DJ Screw. Thank you, Jay, for your time. I mean, I know it's Florida 2K. I know it's raining. I know they're racing, but
And you gave us more time than you said you would.
and you,
so
you
we're
gave
grateful.
us more time. You gave us another 2 hours than you said. I think it's past your bedtime.
Hey, maybe you may have to wheel me out.
Is it safe to say that you're not coming to the cash days?
Yeah, man.
Are you?
No way. No way. Like I totally okay with us doing dumb stuff as
Yeah.
individuals. But to get together and do dumb stuff together, somebody could get hurt, and I don't really want to see that.
I can
No, no.
respect that.
It's all right.
100%.
Yeah. Right on.
Thank you. Thank you again. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe. Make sure you subscribe to RS Garage on
Yep.
YouTube. And, check out Justin White for your GM tuning needs, remote tuning needs. And then, just follow along with the journey of Jay and RS Garage. And you've seen him on, Tech Tips. And, anything you got to say, Justin?
I'm just excited to see where he takes this.
Honestly,
Yeah.
right?
You know,
It's gonna be cool.
it's gonna be a good ride.
Yeah,
Again,
it'd be a good ride.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got some neat guys, And that's really all you need. You got a neat set of people together, and good stuff happens.
And good connections.
Yeah,
That's gonna work.
Sounds
out
like
really
a
well.
good slogan. Will be a good ride or something.
yeah.
I don't know.
I don't know.
We're going back to OnlyFans now.
Okay, stop. Stop.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate it. Thank
you.
you.
Thank you. Peace.
See you soon.